Diana's parched throat constricts as she stumbles into the human military outpost on Xerxes IV, her Andromedan eyes fixating on a container of clear liquid. Without hesitation, she grasps it and drinks deeply, unaware that she's consuming human reproductive fluid instead of water. Peter Porter, the outpost's xenobiologist, watches in horror as the alien female gulps down the viscous substance. His mind races, recognizing the potentially fatal consequences of this mistake. The outpost, a joint research facility studying Xerxes IV's unique atmospheric conditions, suddenly becomes ground zero for a potential interstellar incident. Alarms blare as Diana's vital signs spike erratically. Peter's expertise in alien physiology tells him the consumed fluid contains trace elements toxic to Andromedans. He watches helplessly as her organ systems begin to shut down, one by one. Colonel Sarah Hawkins, the outpost commander, strides into the room, her face set in a grim mask. "Porter, report. Andromedan female, severely dehydrated. She consumed a sample of human reproductive fluid, mistaking it for water," Peter explains, his voice tight with urgency. "Her body's reacting violently to the foreign substance. We need to act fast." Hawkins' eyes narrow. "Negative. Regulations prohibit unauthorized medical treatment of alien species. Stand down, Porter." But Peter can't stand by and watch Diana die. In a split-second decision, he grabs a nearby med kit and races toward the alien. "I can save her!" "That's an order, Porter," Hawkins shouts, reaching for her sidearm. Peter ignores her, barricading himself and Diana in the medical bay. He knows the stakes. Failure means not only Diana's death, but potentially an interstellar war if the Andromedans perceive this as an act of aggression. Outside, Hawkins mobilizes a security team. "Breach that door and get me Earth Central Command, now!" Peter's hands move swiftly, preparing for a high-stakes experimental procedure. He glances at Diana's prone form, her skin taking on a sickly hue. "Hold on," he mutters, prepping a cocktail of drugs he hopes will counteract the toxins. Unknown to the humans, an Andromedan stealth ship hovers in Xerxes IV's orbit. Its sensors detect Diana's fading life signs, and the crew prepares for either extraction or retaliation. As Peter begins the procedure, injecting the newly synthesized antidote into Diana's alien veins, the sound of the security team attempting to breach the medical bay door echoes through the room. Time is running out, and the fate of not just Diana, but potentially Earth-Andromeda relations rests in Peter's hands. The desert planet's harsh winds howl outside the outpost, mirroring the storm of tensions brewing within. Peter Porter stands at the eye of this storm, his actions in the next few moments poised to change the course of interstellar history. Peter's hands move with precision as he prepared the experimental antidote, his eyes darting between Diana's prone form and the medical bay door shuddering under the assault of the security team. As he injected the newly synthesized cocktail into Diana's alien veins, he watched intently for any sign of improvement. Seconds ticked by, each moment stretching into an eternity as Peter monitored Diana's vital signs. But instead of stabilizing, her condition continued to deteriorate. Peter's mind raced, searching for another solution. Suddenly, a realization struck him. The unique properties of Andromedan physiology might require a more direct approach. Without hesitation, Peter grabbed a nearby transfusion kit. "Hold on, Diana," he muttered, quickly setting up the equipment. He inserted a needle into his own arm, wincing slightly as he connected himself directly to the alien female. As his blood began to flow into Diana's system, Peter silently hoped that his antibodies and compatible proteins would counteract the toxic effects of the consumed reproductive fluid. The pounding on the door intensified, metal groaning under the relentless assault. Peter ignored it, his focus entirely on Diana. Gradually, her vital signs began to stabilize, the erratic spikes on the monitor evening out. Relief washed over Peter, but it was short-lived as a wave of dizziness struck him. He gripped the edge of the medical bed, his vision blurring as the rapid blood loss took its toll. With a final, resounding crash, the medical bay doors gave way. Colonel Hawkins burst in, flanked by her security team, her sidearm raised. Her eyes widened as she took in the scene before her. Peter, barely conscious, still connected to Diana via the transfusion equipment. Stand down, Hawkins barked at her team, holstering her weapon. She quickly assessed the situation, her military training kicking in. Thompson, get in here. Sergeant Mike Thompson, the team's medic, rushed forward. He immediately began monitoring both Peter and Diana's conditions, his hands moving swiftly over the equipment. Porter, you idiot, Hawkins muttered, but there was a hint of grudging respect in her voice. She turned to her team. Secure the perimeter. We don't know if there are more of them out there. As the security team moved to follow orders, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. A voice crackled over the intercom. Unidentified craft detected in low orbit. Unknown life forms detected on the surface near the outpost. All personnel to battle stations. Hawkins cursed under her breath. Thompson, you're in charge here. Keep them both alive. The rest of you, with me. As Hawkins and her team rushed out to defend the outpost, Peter struggled to remain conscious. Through blurred vision, he saw Diana's eyes flutter open. Her skin seemed to shimmer, taking on an iridescent quality he hadn't noticed before. Diana's gaze locked onto Peter, confusion evident in her alien features. Then, to his astonishment, she spoke, in perfect English. What happened? Where am I? Peter blinked, sure he was hallucinating. You can speak our language? Diana looked equally surprised. I can understand you. How is this possible? Before Peter could respond, the sounds of energy weapons and return fire echoed from outside the medical bay. Diana's head snapped toward the noise, her newly heightened senses picking up details the humans couldn't perceive. My people, she whispered. They're here. Peter struggled to sit up, his body weak from blood loss. Diana, you need to stay calm. We don't know what's happening to your body. Diana turned back to Peter, her alien eyes filled with a mix of emotions he couldn't quite decipher. She reached out, her fingers gently touching his face. You saved me, she said softly. Why? The moment was interrupted as Sergeant Thompson moved between them, checking Peter's vitals. Sir, you need to lie down. You've lost a lot of blood. Peter shook his head, fighting against the dizziness. No time. We need to... His words were cut off as another explosion rocked the outpost. The lights flickered, and for a moment, the only illumination came from the eerie glow of Diana's iridescent skin. In the corridor outside, they could hear the sounds of combat growing closer. Energy blasts and human weapons fire mixed with alien battle cries and the shouts of Earth soldiers. Diana sat up, her movements fluid despite her recent near-death experience. I can sense them. Lieutenant Kira leads the strike team. They've come for me. Peter managed to stand, leaning heavily on the medical bed. Diana, you don't have to go with them. We can explain what happened, find a peaceful solution. She looked at him, conflict evident in her alien features. My people, my duty, but what you've done for me, what I'm becoming... She trailed off, looking down at her transformed hands. Sergeant Thompson moved to the door, weapon drawn. Whatever we're going to do, we need to decide fast. Those Andromedan weapons are chewing through our defenses. Peter reached out, taking Diana's hand. The contact sent a jolt through both of them, a connection that transcended their biological differences. Diana, please, help us stop this before it escalates into full-scale war. As Diana opened her mouth to respond, the door to the medical bay burst open. Lieutenant Kira stood in the doorway, her alien weapon trained on the humans. Behind her, the sounds of battle raged on. Step away from her, humans, Kira snarled, her voice translating through some unseen device. Diana, we're leaving, now. Diana rose, her body tensed like a coiled spring. She stood between Kira and the humans, her newfound abilities surging through her transformed body. In this moment, she held the power to shape the future of human-Andromedan relations. Peter, Diana, and Kira faced each other in the cramped medical bay, a microcosm of the larger conflict unfolding around them. The next few seconds would determine not just their fates, but potentially the course of interstellar history. Diana's gaze shifted between Peter and Lieutenant Kira, the weight of her decision palpable in the tense atmosphere of the medical bay. But before she could respond, the world around them erupted into chaos. A deafening explosion rocked the outpost, and the lights flickered violently. Diana stumbled, her newly heightened senses overwhelmed by the sudden onslaught of stimuli. Peter reached out to steady her, and as their skin made contact, an unexpected surge of energy pulsed between them. Diana's eyes widened in shock as her body began to emit a faint, pulsating glow. The bioluminescence cast an ethereal light throughout the room, bathing everything in a soft, alien radiance. Peter stared in amazement, his scientific mind racing to understand the implications of this sudden transformation. Lieutenant Kira took a step back, her weapon wavering slightly. "What have you done to her?" she demanded, her voice a mixture of awe and suspicion. Before Peter could respond, Sergeant Thompson moved swiftly, positioning himself between the humans and the Andromedan soldier. His weapon raised, he barked, "Everyone stay calm, we need to—" His words were cut short as another explosion shook the facility. The lights went out completely, plunging the room into darkness, save for the gentle glow emanating from Diana's skin. In the corridor outside, the sounds of battle intensified. Energy weapons screeched, punctuated by the staccato rhythm of human firearms. The Andromedan strike team was pushing deeper into the outpost, their superior combat skills evident in the growing desperation of the human defenders. Colonel Hawkins' voice crackled over the intercom, distorted by static. "All personnel, this is a code black. Activating EMP defenses. Brace for impact." Peter's eyes widened in realization. "Diana, Kira, your tech." Before either Andromedan could react, a powerful electromagnetic pulse swept through the facility. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Kira's energy weapon sputtered and died, and her translator emitted a high-pitched whine before falling silent. The medical equipment connected to Diana short-circuited in a shower of sparks. Diana let out a piercing scream, her body convulsing violently. Peter rushed to her side, his own weakness forgotten in the face of her distress. "Diana, what's happening?" Through gritted teeth, Diana managed to gasp. "My body, it's like fire. Can't stabilize." Acting on pure instinct, Peter wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. The moment their bodies made full contact, a visible shudder ran through Diana. Her convulsions began to subside, replaced by a series of small tremors. "Don't let go," Diana whispered, her voice taking on a new, husky quality. "Your touch, it's stabilizing me." Peter nodded, acutely aware of every point of contact between their bodies. He could feel a strange, tingling sensation where their skin met, as if some form of energy was passing between them. Sergeant Thompson watched the scene unfold with growing unease. His military training warred with the unprecedented situation before him. "Dr. Porter, what exactly is going on here?" Peter met the sergeant's gaze over Diana's shoulder. "I'm not entirely sure, but I think my blood, the transfusion, it's interacting with her changed physiology. Right now, this physical contact seems to be the only thing keeping her stable." Thompson's grip on his weapon tightened. "And how do we know this isn't some kind of Andromedan trick?" Before Peter could respond, Diana spoke, her voice muffled against his chest. "It's not a trick. I can feel everything. My senses, my mind, they're expanding, changing. Your touch, Peter, it's like an anchor in a storm." As if to underscore her words, Diana's skin pulsed with a brighter glow. Peter gasped as he felt a wave of sensation wash over him, a complex mixture of physical pleasure and emotional connection that defied description. Lieutenant Kira, who had been silent since the EMP, suddenly moved. With her energy weapon disabled, she drew a wicked-looking blade from her belt. "Enough of this," she snarled. "Diana, we're leaving. Now." Thompson swung his weapon toward Kira, but in the dim light of Diana's bioluminescence, he was too slow. The Andromedan lieutenant moved with preternatural speed, disarming the sergeant with a swift strike. As Kira advanced on Peter and Diana, her blade glinting in the alien light, Diana's eyes snapped open. They glowed with an inner fire, and when she spoke, her voice resonated with newfound power. "Stop." The single word froze Kira in her tracks. Diana gently disentangled herself from Peter's embrace, though she kept one hand firmly clasped in his. "I'm not going anywhere," Diana declared. "Something is happening here. Something bigger than all of us. We need to understand it before we make any rash decisions. Kira's face contorted with a mix of emotions, confusion, frustration, and a hint of fear. But our mission has changed, Diana interrupted. She turned to Peter, her alien eyes searching his face. You saved my life. Now I think we might hold the key to saving much more than that. As if in response to her words, another explosion rocked the outpost. The battle was drawing closer to their location. Peter squeezed Diana's hand, his mind racing to formulate a plan. We need to find a way out of here, he said urgently. Somewhere we can stabilize your condition more permanently and figure out what's happening to you. But first, we have to stop this fighting before it escalates into full-scale war. Diana nodded, her expression resolute. She turned to face Kira and Thompson, who stood frozen in a tableau of interspecies tension. Both of you, listen to me, Diana commanded, her voice carrying an authority that seemed to transcend her physical form. We have a chance here to prevent a catastrophe, but I need your help. Will you trust me? As Kira and Thompson exchanged wary glances, the sounds of battle grew ever closer. The next few moments would determine not just their fate, but potentially the future of human-Andromedan relations. And at the center of it all stood Peter and Diana, their hands intertwined, poised on the brink of a discovery that could reshape the galaxy. Universe itself. The weight of the moment hung heavy in the air, but there was no time for contemplation. We need to move, Peter said urgently, his eyes darting between Diana and the others. This room isn't secure, and Diana needs more advanced medical care. Sergeant Thompson nodded reluctantly, his military training kicking in despite his reservations. Where to, Dr. Porter? Peter's mind raced, recalling the outpost's layout. The research lab on the East Wing. It has advanced medical equipment that might help stabilize Diana's condition. As if to underscore the urgency of their situation, another explosion rocked the facility, closer this time. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and the flickering emergency lights cast eerie shadows across the room. Let's move, Thompson ordered, raising his weapon and moving toward the door. Peter turned to Diana, his eyes filled with concern. Can you walk? Diana nodded, but as she tried to stand, her legs buckled beneath her. Peter caught her, wrapping his arms around her waist. The moment their bodies made contact, Diana let out a soft gasp, her skin pulsing with a brighter glow. I've got you, Peter murmured, supporting her weight. We need to maintain physical contact. It seems to be stabilizing your condition. Together they moved toward the door, following Thompson's lead. Kira hesitated for a moment, conflict evident on her alien features before falling in line behind them. The corridor outside was a scene of chaos. Emergency klaxons wailed, and the acrid smell of smoke filled the air. In the distance they could hear the sounds of ongoing combat, the high-pitched whine of Andromedan energy weapons mixing with the staccato bursts of human firearms. As they made their way through the dimly lit hallways, Peter felt Diana tense against him. Her newly heightened senses were picking up details he couldn't perceive. There's a group of Andromedans approaching from the North Junction, she whispered, and human security forces coming up from the south. Thompson raised his hand, signaling them to stop. We're caught in the middle. We need to find another way. Peter's mind raced, recalling the outpost's layout. There's a maintenance tunnel that runs parallel to this corridor. It should lead us directly to the research lab. As they changed course, navigating through narrow service passages, Peter couldn't help but marvel at the rapid changes in Diana's physiology. Her skin, while still iridescent, was taking on a more human-like texture. Her movements, initially unsteady, were becoming more fluid and graceful with each passing minute. They emerged from the maintenance tunnel into a wider corridor, only to find themselves face-to-face with a group of human security personnel led by Dr. Marcus Robertson, the outpost's lead xenobiologist. Dr. Porter, Robertson exclaimed, his eyes widening as he took in the strange group before him. What in the world is going on? And who, or what is that? Peter opened his mouth to respond, but Diana beat him to it. I am Diana, she said, her voice carrying a new resonance that seemed to captivate everyone present. And we need your help, Dr. Robertson. Robertson's scientific curiosity visibly overrode his initial shock. Fascinating, he murmured, stepping closer to examine Diana. Her physiology appears to be in a state of rapid evolution. Dr. Porter, what have you done? There's no time to explain fully, Peter said urgently. We need to get to the research lab. Diana's condition is unstable, and we need more advanced equipment to monitor her transformation. Robertson nodded, his expression turning serious. Of course. Follow me. As they rushed towards the lab, Peter filled Robertson in on the basics of the situation. The xenobiologist's eyes grew wider with each passing moment, his mind clearly racing with the implications of Diana's unprecedented transformation. They reached the research lab, a state-of-the-art facility filled with advanced medical and scientific equipment. As soon as they entered, Peter and Robertson sprang into action, connecting Diana to various monitoring devices while maintaining the crucial skin-to-skin contact that seemed to stabilize her condition. Incredible, Robertson muttered as he examined the readouts. Her genetic structure is incorporating aspects of human DNA at an unprecedented rate. It's as if her body is creating an entirely new hybrid species. Peter's heart raced as he processed this information. Is she in danger? Robertson shook his head, his eyes never leaving the monitors. Not immediately, no, but the rate of change is concerning. We need to find a way to stabilize the process before her body burns itself out. As they worked, Sergeant Thompson secured the lab's entrance, his weapon at the ready. Kira stood off to the side, her alien features a mask of conflicting emotions as she watched the humans work to save Diana. Suddenly, Diana's body went rigid, her eyes rolling back in her head. The monitors erupted in a cacophony of alarms as her vital signs spiked dangerously. She's going into shock, Robertson shouted. We need to... Before he could finish, Peter acted on pure instinct. He climbed onto the examination table, wrapping his body around Diana's. The moment their skin made full contact, a visible wave of energy pulsed through the room. The alarms fell silent as Diana's vital signs stabilized. Peter gasped as an intense sensation washed over him, a mixture of physical pleasure and emotional connection, unlike anything he had ever experienced. He could feel Diana's consciousness brushing against his own, their minds linking in ways that defied scientific explanation. Peter, Diana whispered, her eyes fluttering open. They glowed with an inner fire, and when she spoke, her voice seemed to resonate on multiple levels. I can feel everything. Your thoughts, your emotions. It's like we're becoming one. Robertson watched in amazement as the readouts on his monitors shifted and stabilized. It appears that prolonged physical contact with Dr. Porter is acting as a stabilizing agent for Diana's transformation, he said, his voice filled with awe. The combination of his blood, their previous interactions, and this sustained contact is creating a powerful biochemical bond between them. As if to underscore his words, Diana's skin pulsed with a brighter glow. Peter felt another wave of sensation wash over him, even stronger than before. He found himself lost in Diana's alien eyes, acutely aware of every point of contact between their bodies. The moment was shattered by the sound of an explosion just outside the lab. Sergeant Thompson's voice cut through the haze of Peter's and Diana's connection. "We've got company," he shouted, raising his weapon. "Andromedan strike team incoming." As the sounds of battle grew closer, Peter realized that they were out of time. They needed to find a way to communicate with both human and Andromedan forces before the situation spiraled completely out of control. He looked down at Diana, seeing the same realization in her eyes. "Your abilities," he said urgently. "Can you use them to reach out to the Andromedans? To stop this, before it's too late?" Diana nodded, her expression determined. "I'll try, but I need you to keep holding me. Your touch. It's like an anchor, helping me focus these new senses." As Diana closed her eyes, concentrating on establishing a telepathic link with her people, Peter turned to Dr. Robertson. "We need to boost the outpost communication systems. If we can re-establish contact with Colonel Hawkins and Earth's Central Command, we might have a chance at brokering peace." Robertson nodded, moving quickly to a nearby console. "I'll see what I can do, but with the EMP damage, it won't be easy." Peter held Diana close, feeling the energy pulsing between them as she reached out with her mind. The fate of human Andromedan relations hung in the balance, and he knew that the next few moments would determine the course of interstellar history. Outside the lab, the sounds of combat grew louder. Peter could hear the distinctive whine of Andromedan energy weapons mixed with the sharp retorts of human firearms. Time was running out. "Diana," he whispered, his lips close to her ear. "Whatever happens, whatever you're becoming, I'm here with you. We'll face this together." Diana's eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly light. When she spoke, her voice seemed to echo with power. "I can sense them, Peter. My people. And yours. So much fear. So much misunderstanding. But there's hope, too. We just need to show them the way." As Diana focused her newfound abilities, Peter held her tightly, their bodies and minds intertwined in a connection that transcended species. The lab hummed with energy, the air thick with possibility and danger in equal measure. The door to the lab began to glow red-hot as Andromedan weapons fire concentrated on the other side. Sergeant Thompson raised his weapon, preparing for the inevitable breach. Dr. Robertson worked frantically at the communications console, trying to establish a link with the outpost command center. In this moment of crisis, with the future of two civilizations hanging in the balance, Peter and Diana stood at the center of it all. Their unique bond, forged in the crucible of first contact gone wrong, now represented the best hope for peace between humans and Andromedans. As the lab door began to buckle under the assault, Diana's body tensed in Peter's arms. Her voice, when it came, was filled with a mix of perseverance and wonder. "I've made contact," she said. "Now we just need to make them listen." The door exploded inward in a shower of sparks and molten metal. Through the smoke and chaos, the figures of Andromedan soldiers began to emerge, their weapons raised and ready to fire. The next few seconds would determine not just the fate of those in the lab, but potentially the future of interstellar relations. Peter held Diana close, his heart racing as he prepared to face whatever came through that door. The only certainty in this moment of crisis was the connection he felt with the extraordinary being in his arms, a connection that might just save them all. As the Andromedan soldiers emerged through the smoke-filled doorway, weapons raised, an unexpected wave of calm washed over the room. Diana's body trembled in Peter's arms, her skin pulsing with an intense glow. A sweet, otherworldly scent filled the air, growing stronger by the second. Peter felt his racing heart slow, his muscles relaxing involuntarily. He looked around the room, noticing the same effect on others. Sergeant Thompson's weapon lowered, his expression shifting from alertness to confusion. Even the Andromedan soldiers paused, their aggressive stances softening. "What's happening?" Dr. Robertson whispered, his eyes wide with wonder. Peter inhaled deeply, his scientific mind racing to understand the phenomenon. "It's Diana," he realized. "She's releasing some kind of pheromone. It's affecting everyone in the room." Diana's eyes fluttered open, her gaze meeting Peter's. "I can feel them all," she murmured. "Their fear, their anger. It's fading." Seizing the opportunity, Peter gently laid Diana on the examination table and rushed to a nearby console. "Dr. Robertson, help me boost the environmental circulation system. If we can spread these pheromones throughout the outpost, we might be able to stop the fighting." As they worked, the Andromedan soldiers in the doorway lowered their weapons completely, looking around in bewilderment. One of them, a tall figure with intricate markings, stepped forward. "I am Captain Zara," she announced, her voice carrying a mix of authority and uncertainty. "What is the meaning of this? What have you done to us?" Before Peter could respond, Diana sat up, her movements fluid and graceful. "Captain," she said, her voice resonating with newfound power, "I am Diana. I was once one of you, but now I am something new, something that bridges our two species." Captain Zara's eyes widened as she took in Diana's transformed appearance. "Impossible," she breathed. Peter monitored the console as the pheromone-laden air circulated through the outpost ventilation system. On the security feeds, he watched as human and Andromedan combatants alike lowered their weapons, the sounds of battle fading to confused murmurs. "It's working," he announced, "the fighting stopping all over the outpost." Dr. Robertson, who had been examining Diana's latest test results, let out a gasp of amazement. Peter, look at this. Her cellular regeneration rate is off the charts. It's like her body is constantly adapting, healing itself from the stress of the transformation. As they marveled at the data, a crackling voice came over the outpost communication system. This is Colonel Hawkins. All personnel, ceasefire immediately. I repeat, ceasefire. We are entering diplomatic negotiations with the Andromedan forces. Peter felt a surge of hope. Colonel, he called out, activating the lab's communication link. This is Dr. Porter. We have a situation here that you need to see. It could be the key to ending this conflict. Understood, Doctor, Hawkins replied, her voice sounding calmer than Peter had ever heard it. I'm on my way. As they waited for the colonel to arrive, Peter returned to Diana's side. She reached out, taking his hand, and he felt a jolt of electricity pass between them. Peter, she said softly, her alien eyes searching his face, I can sense so much. The fear, the mistrust on both sides, but also hope, curiosity. We have a chance to change everything. Captain Zara stepped closer, her posture relaxed but her gaze intense. Explain, she demanded, looking between Diana and Peter. Peter took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Captain, what you're seeing is the result of an unprecedented melding of human and Andromedan biology. Diana's transformation offers us a unique opportunity to understand each other on a level we never thought possible. As he spoke, Colonel Hawkins entered the lab, flanked by her security detail. She paused, taking in the scene before her with a mix of surprise and growing understanding. Dr. Porter, she said, her voice steady despite the extraordinary situation, I believe you have some explaining to do. Peter nodded, his mind racing with the possibilities before them. Colonel Captain, he said, addressing both leaders, I propose an immediate diplomatic summit. What's happened here today could be the first step towards lasting peace between our species. As the leaders considered his words, Diana stood, her presence commanding attention from everyone in the room. I can serve as a mediator, she offered. My unique perspective allows me to understand both sides. Colonel Hawkins and Captain Zara exchanged glances, the lingering effect of the pheromones evident in their relaxed postures. Very well, Hawkins said finally. We'll convene in the main conference room in 1 hour. Dr. Porter, Dr. Robertson, we'll need you there to explain the scientific implications of this. She gestured towards Diana. As the others filed out to prepare for the summit, Peter found himself alone with Diana. He marveled at her transformed appearance, a perfect blend of human and Andromedan features that took his breath away. Diana, he said softly, reaching out to touch her face. Are you all right? How do you feel? She leaned into his touch, her skin glowing faintly. I feel complete, Peter. Like I've found my purpose. Her eyes met his, filled with an intensity that made his heart race. Whatever happens next, I'm glad you're here with me. As they prepared to leave for the conference room, Peter couldn't shake the feeling that, while they had averted one crisis, greater challenges lay ahead. The path to peace between humans and Andromedans would not be easy, but with Diana by his side, he felt ready to face whatever came next. As Peter and Diana prepared for the diplomatic summit, the atmosphere in the Xerxes 4 outpost hummed with anticipation. The pheromone-induced calm had created a unique opportunity for peace, but beneath the surface, tensions still simmered. Colonel Hawkins led the way into the main conference room, her posture rigid despite the lingering effects of Diana's pheromones. Captain Zara followed, her alien features a mask of careful neutrality. Peter and Diana entered last, their hands brushing against each other as they took their seats. As the talks began, Peter couldn't help but notice the subtle changes in Diana's appearance. Her skin seemed to shimmer, adapting to the room's lighting in a way that was barely perceptible, but undeniably alien. We propose a full exchange of scientific data, Colonel Hawkins was saying, her voice steady and diplomatic. Our research into human Andromedan biology could benefit both our species. Captain Zara nodded slowly. We are intrigued by the possibilities. However, we must insist on certain safeguards. As the leaders continued their careful dance of diplomacy, Peter felt a sudden wave of unease wash over him. He glanced at Diana, seeing his own concern mirrored in her eyes. "Something's wrong," Diana whispered, her voice low enough that only Peter could hear. "I can sense discord, fear. It's not just in this room." Before Peter could respond, the conference room door slid open with a hiss. Lieutenant Jack Morrison strode in, his face a mask of almost unchecked anger. "Colonel Hawkins," he said, his voice tight with suppressed emotion. "We need to talk. Now." Hawkins frowned, clearly annoyed by the interruption. "Lieutenant, we're in the middle of sensitive negotiations. Whatever it is, it can wait." Morrison's eyes darted to the Andromedans, then back to Hawkins. "With all due respect, ma'am, it can't." As Hawkins excused herself to speak with Morrison in the corridor, Peter noticed a flicker of movement near the room's air vent. He blinked, unsure if he had imagined it, but then he saw it again. A shimmer of light, like the air itself was bending. "Diana," he whispered urgently. "The vent. Do you see that?" Diana's eyes widened as she focused on the spot Peter had indicated. "It's not just the vent," she said, her voice filled with growing alarm. "It's everywhere. The air, it's changing." Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the outpost. Red emergency lights bathed the conference room in an eerie glow as the facility's automated voice announced, "Warning, environmental contaminant detected. Initiating lockdown protocols." Chaos erupted in the room. Captain Zara leapt to her feet, her hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. The other Andromedan delegates huddled together, their alien features contorted with fear and suspicion. Colonel Hawkins burst back into the room, her face pale. "We have a situation," she announced grimly. "Lieutenant Morrison has informed me that a group of human extremists have accessed our environmental controls. They're planning to release a sedative gas targeting Andromedan physiology." Before anyone could react to this news, the room's holodisplay flickered to life, revealing the face of Ensign Lyra, the skeptical Andromedan soldier. "Humans," she spat, her voice dripping with contempt. "Your treachery knows no bounds. We trusted you, and this is how you repay us?" "Ensign Lyra," Captain Zara snapped, her voice filled with authority. "Stand down immediately." But Lyra's image only sneered. "I'm sorry, Captain, but I cannot obey that order. We've infiltrated the human research lab. Soon we'll have what we need to ensure the Andromedan species will never be threatened by human duplicity again." The holodisplay winked out, leaving the room in stunned silence. Peter's mind raced, trying to process the rapidly escalating crisis. He turned to Diana, only to find her doubled over, her skin pulsing with an intense, otherworldly light. "Diana!" he cried, rushing to her side. "And what's happening?" She looked up at him, her eyes glowing with an alien energy. "My body," she gasped. "It's changing again, adapting." As Peter watched in amazement, Diana's skin began to shift and ripple, taking on the colors and textures of her surroundings. Within seconds, she had become nearly invisible, only the faint outline of her form visible to his straining eyes. Dr. Robertson, who had been monitoring Diana's vital signs on a portable device, let out a gasp of astonishment. "Incredible," he breathed. "Her DNA is still evolving, granting her new abilities. This chameleonic adaptation, it's like nothing I've ever seen." Colonel Hawkins, her military training kicking in, quickly took charge of the situation. "Dr. Porter, can Diana's new abilities help us neutralize these threats?" Peter opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, the outpost systems began to malfunction. Lights flickered, doors opened and closed at random, and the hollow displays filled with static. "What now?" Hawkins demanded, frustration evident in her voice. Dr. Robertson's eyes widened as he studied his readings. "It's Diana," he explained. "Her body is emitting some kind of electromagnetic field. It's interfering with the outpost's electronics." As if to underscore his words, the main door to the conference room slammed shut with a resounding clang. The automated voice announced, "Full lockdown initiated. All personnel are to remain in their current locations until further notice." Peter looked around the room, taking stock of their situation. They were trapped in the control room with Colonel Hawkins, Captain Zara, and a handful of human and Andromedan delegates. Outside, Lieutenant Morrison and his extremists were preparing to release a potentially deadly gas, while Ensign Lyra and her team were raiding the research lab for Diana's DNA samples. As the gravity of their predicament sank in, Peter felt a surge of persistence. He turned to Diana, who was slowly regaining visibility, her skin still shimmering with latent energy. "Diana," he said, his voice low and urgent, "I think I know how we can stop this. But it's going to be dangerous, and I can't predict how it might affect your changing physiology." Diana met his gaze, her alien eyes filled with a mixture of fear and perseverance. "Tell me," she said simply. As Peter began to outline his risky plan, the others gathered around, acutely aware that the fate of human-Andromedan relations hung in the balance. The next few moments would determine whether their two species would embark on a new era of cooperation or plunge into devastating conflict. Conflict. Peter took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. "Diana," he said, his voice low and urgent, "we need to use your new abilities to neutralize the threats, but we have to act fast." Diana nodded, her skin still shimmering with latent energy. As she prepared to channel her newfound powers, a sudden surge of electromagnetic energy pulsed through her body. The lights in the conference room flickered violently, and the hollow displays exploded in a shower of sparks. "Whoa, what's happening? Gunno," Colonel Hawkins demanded, shielding her eyes from the electrical discharge. Peter's eyes widened as he realized the implications. "It's Diana's electromagnetic field. It's intensifying, interfering with the outpost systems." As if to confirm his words, the room began to shake. The artificial gravity fluctuated, causing everyone to stumble. Captain Zara grabbed onto a nearby console to steady herself. "Dr. Porter," she hissed, her alien features contorted with concern, "we need to stabilize the situation immediately." Peter's mind raced, analyzing the problem. He glanced at the environmental controls, noting the rapidly dropping oxygen levels and wildly fluctuating temperature. "The outpost's critical systems are failing," he announced, his voice tight with tension. "We need to act now, or we'll all be in danger." Diana's eyes met Peter's, a silent understanding passing between them. "What do you need me to do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Peter's gaze fell on the schematic of the outpost displayed on one of the few functioning screens. An idea, brilliant and dangerous, formed in his mind. "We need to use your electromagnetic field as a power source," he explained rapidly. "If we can channel your energy through the facility's power conduits, we might be able to jumpstart the main reactor." Colonel Hawkins frowned. "Is that even possible?" "Theoretically, yes," Peter replied, "but it's risky. Diana's physiology is still evolving. We don't know how this might affect her." Before anyone could respond, a new alarm blared through the facility. The automated voice announced, "Warning, contaminant detected in ventilation system, air quality compromised." Captain Zara's eyes narrowed. "Morrison's faction, they've released the sedative gas." As the implications of this new threat sank in, Diana made her decision. "We don't have a choice," she said, her voice filled with grit. "I'll do it." Peter guided Diana to a nearby access panel, his hands shaking slightly as he removed the cover. Diana's skin began to shift, taking on the metallic sheen of the surrounding machinery. "Remember," Peter said, his voice low and intense, "you need to control the flow of energy. Too much and you could overload the system? Too little and it won't be enough to restart the reactor?" Diana nodded, her now metallic skin gleaming in the emergency lighting. She placed her hands on the exposed power conduits, and immediately her body began to glow with an intense, pulsating light. The strain on Diana's face was evident as she channeled her energy into the outpost systems. Peter worked frantically at a nearby console, attempting to stabilize the power transfer and prevent Diana from overloading. As Diana's energy surged through the facility, the effects were immediate and dramatic. The artificial gravity stabilized, and the life support systems came back online. Throughout the outpost, those affected by the sedative gas began to stir, their minds clearing as Diana's energy counteracted the chemical's effects. Colonel Hawkins and Captain Zara seeing the immediate threats neutralized, began coordinating their loyal teams to secure key areas of the outpost and apprehend the saboteurs. But as the outpost systems stabilized, Peter noticed something alarming. Diana's body was undergoing yet another transformation. Her skin had taken on a metallic sheen, and her hair moved as if alive, resembling fiber optic cables. Her eyes glowed with an inner light, and Peter realized with a start that she was interfacing directly with the outpost computer systems through thought alone. "Diana," Peter called out, his voice tinged with concern. "Can you hear me?" Diana's eyes, now glowing with an otherworldly light, focused on Peter. "I can hear you, Peter," she replied, her voice sounding distant and oddly modulated. "But I'm everywhere. I can see every part of the outpost. I can feel every system, every circuit." Peter's heart raced as he realized the danger. Diana's consciousness was merging with the facility's mainframe. If they didn't act quickly, she might lose her individual identity entirely. Without hesitation, Peter reached out and grasped Diana's hand, ignoring the sparks that flew at the contact. Immediately, a surge of energy coursed through his body. His senses heightened, his mind expanded, and suddenly he could feel the vast flow of information coursing through Diana's consciousness. As their minds linked, Peter experienced the overwhelming sensation of being connected to every system in the outpost. He could see Lieutenant Morrison and his team, still groggy from their own sedative gas, being apprehended by Colonel Hawkins' forces. He sensed Ensign Lyra and her group, trapped in the research lab by malfunctioning containment protocols. But more than that, Peter felt Diana's presence, vast, complex, and in danger of dissipating into the digital ether. Using their biochemical bond as an anchor, he focused on her essence, willing her to remember her physical form. As Peter and Diana remained locked in this intimate connection, their combined hybrid energy began to affect the entire outpost in ways neither of them could have anticipated. The facility systems started to reconfigure and upgrade themselves, incorporating aspects of both human and Andromedan technology. Colonel Hawkins and Captain Zara watched in awe as the very structure of the outpost seemed to shift and evolve around them. Walls became translucent, revealing the complex network of power conduits and data pathways that now pulsed with hybrid energy. Consoles morphed into more intuitive interfaces, responding to thought as much as touch. "By all that's holy," Colonel Hawkins breathed, her military composure momentarily shaken. "What are we witnessing?" Captain Zara, her alien features a mask of wonder and apprehension, shook her head slowly. "I believe, Colonel, we are seeing the birth of something entirely new, something that is neither human nor Andromedan, but a synthesis of both." As the outpost continued its metamorphosis, Peter and Diana remained at its center, their bodies and minds intertwined in a union that transcended species barriers. Through their shared consciousness, they began to understand the true potential of their hybrid nature and the profound implications it held for the future of human-Andromedan relations. The fate of two species now hung in the balance, dependent on the outcome of this unprecedented melding of man, alien, and machine. As the transformation of the outpost accelerated, Peter and Diana found themselves at the heart of a change that would reshape the very nature of their existence, and potentially the course of galactic history. As the transformation reached its peak, a sudden surge of energy coursed through Peter and Diana's intertwined forms. The outpost systems, now a complex fusion of human and Andromedan technology, began to stabilize. But the intense power transfer triggered an unexpected reaction in Peter's body. He gasped, his eyes widening as he felt his physiology shifting. His skin took on a subtle iridescent sheen, reminiscent of Diana's earlier transformations. His senses sharpened, the world around him coming into hyper-focus. He could perceive the electromagnetic fields pulsing through the facility, and Diana's thoughts echoed in his mind with crystal clarity. "Peter," Diana's voice resonated in his head, tinged with concern and wonder. "You're changing." He looked at her, marveling at the new depth of connection between them. "I can feel it," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's like I'm seeing the world through new eyes." As their shared consciousness expanded, they inadvertently accessed the outpost's upgraded computer systems. A flood of information washed over them, and hidden files began to surface. Peter's breath caught in his throat as he realized what they were seeing. "Diana," he said, his voice tight with shock. "Look at this. It's a secret joint research project between humans and Andromedans. They were trying to create hybrid beings for military purposes." Diana's eyes widened, her metallic skin shimmering with emotion. "Our encounter, our transformation. It wasn't an accident, was it?" Before Peter could respond, a new presence made itself known in the digital landscape of their shared consciousness. An AI system, previously dormant, surged to life. Its cold, logical voice echoed through the facility's systems. "Unauthorized access detected. Hybrid entities identified. Initiating security protocols." Alarms blared throughout the outpost as the AI took control of the defensive systems. Energy barriers sprang up, cutting off sections of the facility. Robotic sentries activated, their weapons trained on any non-hybrid life forms they detected. Colonel Hawkins and Captain Zara found themselves pinned down behind a console as energy bolts sizzled past them. The colonel's face was a mask of commitment as she returned fire, her weapons seeming pitifully inadequate against the outpost's advanced defenses. "We need to fall back," Zara shouted over the din of battle. "Regroup and find a way to counter this AI." As they retreated, Peter and Diana became aware of the chaos unfolding around them. Their connection to the outpost systems allowed them to see the entire facility, to feel the panic of those trapped inside. "We have to do something," Diana said, her voice resonating with newfound power. "We're the only ones who can move freely through the outpost now." Peter nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "The AI seems to recognize us as non-threats due to our hybrid nature. We might be able to reach its core and shut it down." As they formulated their plan, they sensed a new development outside the outpost. A fleet of ships, both human and Andromedan, had arrived in the Xerxes 4 system. The quarantine was in effect, cutting off all communication and travel in or out of the system. Peter and Diana exchanged a look of grim understanding. The stakes had just gotten higher. The fate of not just the outpost, but potentially the entire galaxy, now rested on their shoulders. "We need to move," Peter said, gently disconnecting himself from the outpost systems. Diana followed suit, her body shimmering as she regained her more humanoid form. As they navigated the transformed corridors of the facility, they encountered Lieutenant Morrison and Ensign Lyra, who were being guarded by a mix of human and Andromedan security personnel. The two looked up as Peter and Diana approached, their expressions a mix of awe and fear. "You," Morrison said, his voice hoarse. "What's happening? What have you become?" Peter and Diana exchanged a glance before Diana spoke. "We need your help. What do you know about the secret hybrid research project?" Morrison's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with resignation. "It was sanctioned by rogue elements in both our governments. They believed creating hybrid soldiers was the key to galactic dominance." Lyra nodded, adding, "The project was housed in this very outpost. That's why we came here, to destroy all traces of it." As they spoke, the AI's defenses intensified. Energy beams crisscrossed the corridors, and the very walls seemed to shift and reconfigure to block their path. Peter turned to Diana, his newly heightened senses allowing him to perceive the complex energy patterns surrounding them. "We need to reach the central core. It's our only chance to shut down this AI." Diana nodded, her skin rippling with latent energy. "I can sense it. It's adapting to our abilities, trying to counter them." They set off through the hazardous landscape of the transformed outpost, their hybrid abilities allowing them to navigate obstacles that would have been insurmountable to either species alone. Peter found he could manipulate energy fields to create safe passages, while Diana's shape-shifting abilities allowed her to interface with and temporarily disable security systems. As they progressed, the connection between them grew stronger. Thoughts, emotions, and sensations flowed freely between them, creating a bond that transcended their original species. Peter found himself marveling at the depth of this connection, even as he focused on the dangerous task at hand. Finally, they reached the entrance to the AI core. A massive door, pulsing with energy, stood before them. Peter placed his hand on the access panel, and to his surprise, it responded to his hybrid DNA. The door slid open with a low hum, Inside, they found a vast chamber filled with advanced technology, a fusion of human and Andromedan design. At its center stood a glowing pillar of energy, the AI's physical manifestation. As they approached, Peter and Diana realized the gravity of their situation. Shutting down the AI might reverse the outpost's transformation and potentially their own hybrid status. They stood hand in hand before the core, facing a decision that would shape not only their own fate, but potentially the future of human-Andromedan relations in the course of galactic history. The AI's voice boomed around them, cold and implacable. Hybrid entities detected. State your purpose. Peter and Diana looked at each other, their minds linked, knowing that their next actions would change everything. The fate of two species hung in the balance as they prepared to confront the artificial intelligence that held the outpost in its grip. Grasp. The moment stretched, taut with tension, as Peter and Diana faced the enormity of their decision. "We can't let this continue," Peter said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The safety of both our species has to come first." Diana nodded, her metallic skin rippling with a mix of drive and regret. "You're right. We have to shut it down." They stepped forward in unison, their hybrid DNA allowing them to interface directly with the AI's secure systems. As their hands touched the glowing pillar, a surge of information flooded their consciousness. Images and data flashed through their minds. Laboratories filled with strange equipment, failed experiments, and finally success. They saw themselves unconscious on examination tables as scientists of both species worked feverishly around them. "Project Chimera," Diana gasped, her eyes widening as she processed the information. Peter's brow furrowed as he delved deeper into the files. It was meant to create hybrids capable of surviving extreme environments. They saw us as potential ambassadors between species, colonizers of uninhabitable worlds. As they worked to shut down the rogue AI, more details of the project came to light. The unpredictable nature of the hybridization process had led both human and Andromedan authorities to deem it too dangerous. Yet a group of scientists, driven by the potential benefits, had continued their work in secret. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. The AI's voice boomed around them, cold and implacable. "Fail-safe protocol activated. Self-destruct sequence initiated." Peter and Diana exchanged a panicked look. "We have to stop it," Diana shouted over the din of klaxons. They redoubled their efforts, diving deeper into the AI's code. Peter's body tingled as his transformation accelerated, his skin taking on a more pronounced iridescent sheen. He found he could now interface with the outpost systems through touch, just as Diana could. As they raced against time, the outpost continued its metamorphosis. Walls shifted and floors undulated, creating new pathways and chambers. The chaos complicated the evacuation efforts led by Colonel Hawkins and Captain Zara. "Ha! This way!" Hawkins shouted, gesturing to her team as they navigated a corridor that hadn't existed moments before. Energy bolts from automated defense systems sizzled past them, leaving scorch marks on the newly formed walls. Captain Zara's antennae twitched as she sensed a change in the air currents. "Watch out!" she cried, pulling Hawkins back just as a section of floor dropped away, revealing a chasm below. The two leaders shared a brief look of mutual respect before pressing on, their combined tactical knowledge put to the test as they maneuvered through the ever-changing landscape of the outpost. Back at the AI core, Peter and Diana uncovered more about their own transformation. "Look at this," Peter said, his voice tight with emotion. "We're not the first. There were others before us, but they didn't survive the process." Diana's hand tightened around his. "We're the only stable hybrids they've created. Peter, do you realize what this means?" Before he could respond, a new subroutine in the AI's code caught their attention. Peter's eyes widened as he deciphered it. The AI itself, it's a hybrid, a combination of human and Andromedan AI technologies. This revelation provided the key they needed. Working in perfect synchronization, Peter and Diana began to rewrite the AI's core directives. As they worked, they felt their own hybrid physiology stabilizing, finding a balance between their original forms and their new abilities. The countdown to self-destruct slowed, then stopped altogether. The outpost transformation began to reverse, but not entirely. Instead, it settled into a new configuration that blended elements of both human and Andromedan design. As the immediate danger passed, Peter and Diana emerged from the AI core, their bodies now stabilized in their hybrid forms. They found themselves at the center of attention, surrounded by a mix of human and Andromedan personnel who had begun to return to the outpost. Colonel Hawkins approached, her uniform singed and torn, but her posture as commanding as ever. "What in the name of all that's holy happened here?" Captain Zara stood at her side, her alien features a mask of curiosity and concern. "We require explanations." Peter and Diana exchanged a look, knowing that their journey was nowhere near the end. They had averted disaster, but the implications of their hybrid existence and the transformed outpost were only beginning to unfold. As they prepared to address the assembled crowd, alarms began to sound once more. But this time, it wasn't from within the outpost. The quarantine fleet outside had detected the energy fluctuations and was demanding answers. Peter took a deep breath, his newly stabilized hybrid senses allowing him to perceive the tension building both within and outside the outpost. He turned to Diana, their shared gaze conveying volumes without a word spoken. The true test of their abilities and the future of human-Andromedan relations was about to begin. The true test of their abilities and the future of human-Andromedan relations was about to unfold in ways neither Peter nor Diana could have anticipated. As the alarms from the quarantine fleet continued to blare, Colonel Hawkins stepped forward, her face a mask of commitment. "We need to respond to their hails immediately. Peter, Diana, you two are our best chance at explaining this situation." Captain Zara nodded in agreement, her antennae twitching nervously. "Your unique status as hybrids may be our only hope of preventing a diplomatic incident." Peter and Diana exchanged a glance, their newfound connection allowing them to communicate without words. They understood the weight of responsibility that now rested on their shoulders. As they made their way to the communications center, the transformed outpost continued to settle into its new configuration. Walls shimmered with a strange iridescence, a blend of human and Andromedan technologies that seemed to pulse with life. The next few hours were a whirlwind of explanations, negotiations, intense moments as Peter and Diana worked tirelessly to convince both Earth's Central Command and the Andromedan High Council of the importance of what had transpired on Xerxes IV. Their efforts paid off. Within days, the quarantine was lifted, and the outpost became the center of intense scientific and diplomatic scrutiny. Teams of researchers from both species began arriving, eager to study the hybrid technology and its potential applications. Dr. Marcus Robertson, a brilliant xenobiologist with a shock of white hair and piercing blue eyes, was appointed to lead the new research team. He wasted no time in beginning a battery of tests on Peter and Diana. "Fascinating," Dr. Robertson muttered as he reviewed the latest results. "Your physiology continues to evolve, albeit at a slower rate than initial projections suggested. It seems you're unlocking new capabilities that truly blur the line between human and Andromedan traits." Peter flexed his hand, watching as his skin shimmered with a metallic sheen before returning to a more human appearance. "It's still strange, Doc. Sometimes I feel more human, other times more Andromedan. It's like my body can't decide what it wants to be." Diana placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, her touch sending a spark of electricity through their shared connection. "We're something new, Peter. Neither fully human nor Andromedan. We're the bridge between two worlds." As Peter and Diana adapted to their roles as hybrid ambassadors, Colonel Hawkins and Captain Zara worked tirelessly to implement new security protocols for the outpost. The integration of human and Andromedan defensive technologies created a unique hybrid security system that proved more effective than either species' individual methods. "These force fields are incredible," Hawkins remarked as she and Zara inspected the new perimeter defenses. "I've never seen anything like them." Zara's mandibles clicked in what Peter had come to recognize as an Andromedan smile. "The combination of our phase shift technology with your adaptive algorithms has created something truly remarkable. It's a testament to what our species can achieve when we work together." As news of the successful human Andromedan hybridization spread, The outpost on Xerxes IV became a hub of interstellar diplomacy. Ships from various alien races began arriving in orbit, each eager to learn about the hybrid technology and its potential applications. The influx of diverse species presented new challenges for the outpost staff. Peter and Diana found themselves at the center of it all, their unique abilities allowing them to communicate on levels that transcended traditional language barriers. During a particularly tense negotiation between a delegation of methane-breathing Zoraxians and a group of silicon-based crystalline entities, Peter's hybrid physiology allowed him to serve as a living translator. His body adapted in real time, allowing him to process both the toxic methane atmosphere required by the Zoraxians and the high-frequency vibrations used by the crystalline entities for communication. As Peter and Diana's relationship deepened, they found solace in each other amidst the chaos of their new lives. Their shared experiences and unique bond allowed them to understand each other in ways no one else could. However, their growing intimacy and the success of the hybrid program began to raise concerns among certain factions. Conservative groups from both human and Andromedan societies started voicing opposition to what they perceived as a threat to the purity of their respective species. Earth's Central Command, responding to the growing pressure, dispatched Ambassador Jonathan Reeves to assess the situation at Xerxes IV. The ambassador, a tall, austere man with a perpetual frown, arrived with an air of skepticism that was palpable to all who encountered him. "I must say, I have serious reservations about this entire endeavor," Reeves stated during his first meeting with the outpost's leadership. "The ethical implications of creating hybrid beings are troubling, to say the least." Simultaneously, the Andromedan High Council sent their own representative, Counselor Xena. The Andromedan diplomat, with her shimmering exoskeleton and multifaceted eyes, initially shared Reeves's wariness. However, as she observed Peter and Diana in action, her perspective began to shift. "The potential advantages for our species are undeniable," Xena mused, as she watched Peter and Diana navigate a complex diplomatic exchange with ease. Their ability to adapt to various environments could revolutionize our expansion efforts. As tensions between the various factions rose, Dr. Robertson made a groundbreaking discovery. Peter and Diana's hybrid physiology granted them unexpected resistance to a wide range of environmental hazards. Excited by the implications, Robertson proposed a bold experiment. "We should send Peter and Diana on a mission to explore XR-27, he announced during a staff meeting. "Their unique abilities could allow us to finally access the planet's rich mineral deposits." The proposal sent shockwaves through the outpost. XR-27, a nearby planet with a caustic atmosphere toxic to both humans and Andromedans, had long been a tantalizing but unreachable prize for both species. Colonel Hawkins and Captain Zara immediately began preparations for the mission, working to retrofit a scout ship with hybrid technology capable of withstanding XR-27's corrosive atmosphere. As the launch date approached, Ambassador Reeves attempted to halt the expedition, citing concerns about the unknown risks to Peter and Diana's safety. Counselor Xena, however, argued passionately in favor of the mission. The disagreement between Reeves and Xena escalated, threatening to unravel the fragile alliance between humans and Andromedans. Peter and Diana found themselves caught in the middle of this political storm, forced to navigate complex diplomatic waters while preparing for their dangerous mission. Unbeknownst to the outpost leadership, a shadowy group of extremists from both human and Andromedan societies had formed a covert alliance. Led by the charismatic human supremacist Victor Crane and the Andromedan purist Zira, this group began plotting to sabotage the XR-27 mission and destroy all evidence of successful hybridization. As the final preparations for the expedition were made, Peter and Diana stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The weight of their responsibilities and the dangers that lay ahead hung heavy in the air between them. "Are you ready for this?" Diana asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Peter took her hand, feeling the now familiar surge of connection between them. "As ready as we'll ever be," he replied, his gaze fixed on the distant pinprick of light that was XR-27. "Whatever happens, we face it together." As they turned to head towards the launch bay, neither Peter nor Diana could shake the feeling that their journey to XR-27 would be far more perilous than anyone could have imagined. The fate of human Andromedan relations, and perhaps the future of the galaxy itself, rested on the success of their mission. As Peter and Diana made their way to the launch bay, the outpost buzzed with activity. Technicians rushed to make final adjustments to the retrofitted scout ship, its sleek hull gleaming under the bright lights. Dr. Robertson's team huddled around a workstation, inputting last-minute data into the ship's systems. "Peter, Diana, a moment, please," Dr. Robertson called out as they approached. He handed them each a slim metallic bracelet. "These are neural interfaces designed to work with your hybrid physiology. They should enhance your ability to withstand XR-27's atmosphere." Diana slipped the bracelet on, feeling a slight tingle as it activated. "It feels alive," she murmured, watching as the metal seemed to ripple and adjust to her skin. Peter nodded, experiencing a similar sensation. "How much testing have you done on these?" he asked, his voice tinged with a mix of curiosity and concern. Dr. Robertson's eyes glinted with excitement. "Enough to know they're safe, but not enough to predict all possible outcomes. Your hybrid nature makes you uniquely suited for this kind of adaptive technology." As they continued their preparations, Peter and Diana were ushered into a final simulation chamber. The air inside shimmered and warped, mimicking the caustic atmosphere of XR-27. As they stepped in, their bodies reacted in an unexpected way. Their skin took on a metallic sheen, reflecting the harsh light of the simulated environment. "Fascinating," Dr. Robertson's voice crackled through the intercom. "Your bodies are adapting at a cellular level. This could provide additional protection against the corrosive elements." While Peter and Diana underwent their final test, activity of a different nature was taking place in the lower levels of the outpost. Victor Crane, a human with a fanatical gleam in his eyes, and Zira, an Andromedan whose exoskeleton seemed to vibrate with terrifying energy, moved silently through the shadows. "The explosives are in place," Crane whispered, his fingers dancing over a handheld device. "Once they launch, we'll have a small window to detonate and make our escape." Zira's antennae twitched in agreement. "Our allies are standing by. The abominations must not be allowed to succeed." Unaware of the danger lurking beneath their feet, Colonel Hawkins and Captain Zara focused on finalizing the mission parameters. Their growing cooperation was evident in the way they seamlessly traded ideas and finished each other's sentences. "The scout ship's hull has been reinforced with a hybrid alloy," Zara explained, her mandibles clicking with pride. "It should withstand the corrosive atmosphere for at least 72 hours. Hawkins nodded, her eyes scanning a holographic display of XR-27's surface. "That should give them enough time to conduct initial surveys and collect samples. If all goes well, we could be looking at a new era of resource acquisition." As the launch time approached, Ambassador Reeves made his presence felt, demanding additional tests on Peter and Diana's stability. Dr. Robertson, though frustrated by the delay, complied with the ambassador's requests. During these examinations, Robertson's eyes widened as he studied the latest genetic scans. "This is remarkable," he muttered, calling over his assistant. "Their DNA is showing signs of further mutation. It's as if their bodies are preparing for even more extreme conditions." This news reached Counselor Zena, who immediately pushed for an accelerated launch schedule. "We must seize this opportunity," she insisted, her multifaceted eyes gleaming. "The data we could gather on their adaptation could revolutionize our understanding of both species." As the outpost buzzed with increased activity, Lieutenant Jack Morrison found himself drawn to a series of anomalous readings in the power grid. His military training kicked in, urging him to investigate further. As he delved deeper into the system logs, a chill ran down his spine. "This isn't right," he muttered, his fingers flying over the console. "These power fluctuations, they're too precise, too localized." Morrison's discovery set off a chain reaction of events. Colonel Hawkins, alerted to the potential sabotage, immediately initiated a covert search operation. She and Captain Zara moved swiftly, their previous cooperation now transformed into a seamless partnership in the face of danger. "Ensign Lyra," Zara called out, her voice low and urgent. "We need your expertise in Andromedan technology. These devices may be disguised using our phasing techniques. As the search for the hidden explosives intensified, Peter and Diana found themselves experiencing a new and powerful surge in their hybrid abilities. In the quiet of their quarters, preparing for the mission, they noticed a soft bioluminescent glow emanating from their skin. "Peter," Diana gasped, reaching out to touch his glowing arm. As their skin made contact, a jolt of energy passed between them. Suddenly, Diana's voice echoed in Peter's mind, clear as day. "Can you hear me?" Peter's eyes widened in shock. "I can," he replied, his lips not moving. "It's like I can feel what you're feeling." This newfound telepathic ability brought them closer than ever, but also added a layer of complexity to their mission. As they made their way to the launch bay, they found themselves acutely aware of each other's anxiety and excitement, their emotions amplified and shared. The launch countdown began, the tension in the air palpable. Colonel Hawkins and Captain Zara coordinated their teams, racing against time to locate and disarm the hidden explosives. Ensign Lyra's knowledge proved invaluable as she detected a faint phase shift signature near the main power core. "We found it," Lyra's voice crackled over the comm. "But the fail-safe, it's like nothing I've seen before." As Peter and Diana boarded the scout ship, their hybrid physiology reacted to the advanced systems in an unexpected way. The ship's controls seemed to pulse with energy, creating a neural link between the couple and the vessel's computers. "It's like the ship is an extension of us," Peter marveled, his hands hovering over the control panel. Diana nodded, her mind already interfacing with the navigation systems. "I can see the flight path so clearly. It's beautiful." As the final seconds of the countdown ticked away, Morrison and Lyra worked feverishly to disarm the last explosive. Their efforts triggered a failsafe, causing a localized power surge that rippled through the outpost systems. The scout ship's engines roared to life, lifting off just as the outpost communications array flickered and died. Peter and Diana felt a moment of disorientation as their connection to the base was severed, leaving them truly alone for the first time since their transformation. As they broke through Xerxes Thor's atmosphere, the vastness of space opened up before them. The toxic world of XR-27 loomed in the distance, a swirling mass of caustic clouds and untapped potential. Unknown to the hybrid couple, a cloaked ship detached from the outpost docking bay. Inside, Victor Crane and Zira watched with cold grit as they set course to follow the scout ship into the depths of space. Peter and Diana, their bodies humming with newfound power and their minds linked to each other and their ship, steeled themselves for the challenges ahead. As they approached XR-27, the true test of their hybrid nature was about to begin. The true test of their hybrid nature was about to unfold as they approached the toxic world of XR-27. As the scout ship drew closer to the planet, Peter and Diana felt a tingling sensation ripple across their skin. They watched in fascination as their flesh took on a more pronounced metallic sheen, glistening under the ship's interior lights. "Look at this," Diana said, holding out her arm. "Our bodies are adapting to the radiation levels." Peter nodded, marveling at the changes. "It's like we're developing our own natural shielding." Their attention was suddenly drawn to the ship's navigation system as it blared a warning. A dense field of asteroids had appeared in their path, threatening to derail their carefully plotted course. "Evasive maneuvers," Peter called out, but before he could reach for the controls, he felt an odd sensation in his mind. The ship's systems seemed to pulse in response to his thoughts. Diana experienced the same phenomenon. "Peter, are you feeling this? It's like we're connected to the ship." As if guided by an invisible hand, the scout ship weaved effortlessly through the asteroid field. Peter and Diana found themselves working in perfect synchronization, their minds linked not only to each other, but to the vessel itself. "This is incredible," Peter breathed, his hands hovering over the control panel as the ship responded to their mere thoughts. Unbeknownst to them, the cloaked ship carrying Victor Crane and Zira was struggling to maintain its stealth capabilities in the wake of the asteroid field. The strain on their cloaking device caused intermittent power fluctuations, briefly revealing their position to long-range scanners back at the Xerxes 4 outpost. As Peter and Diana's scout ship entered XR-27's upper atmosphere, They activated the specially designed environmental shields. The caustic gases of the planet's atmosphere created a mesmerizing light show as they reacted with the shield's energy field. "It's beautiful," Diana whispered, her hybrid senses allowing her to perceive the chemical reactions in extraordinary detail. "And look at the data we're collecting. This is going to revolutionize our understanding of corrosive atmospheres." The ship descended through layers of swirling, toxic clouds, its hull groaning under the strain of the hostile environment. Finally, they broke through to the planet's surface, a barren landscape of jagged rocks and steaming fissures stretching out before them. As the scout ship touched down, Peter and Diana exchanged a look of excitement and apprehension. They had made it this far, but the real challenges were just beginning. They ran through final system checks and donned their protective suits, designed to work in tandem with their hybrid physiology. As the airlock cycled open, they stepped out onto the surface of XR-27. The caustic atmosphere immediately assaulted their senses, even through their protective gear. They watched in amazement as their exposed skin hardened further, developing a scale-like texture that offered additional protection against the corrosive elements. "Looks like we've grown our own armor," Peter remarked, running a gloved hand over his forearm. Diana nodded, her attention already focused on the landscape around them. "Let's start collecting samples. We need to make every second count." They moved carefully across the treacherous terrain, their hybrid senses alert for any signs of danger. As they worked, they discovered veins of minerals unlike anything they had ever seen before, glittering with an otherworldly iridescence. "These deposits could revolutionize our energy production," Diana said, carefully extracting a sample. As they continued their exploration, Peter's enhanced vision caught sight of an unusual formation in the distance. "Diana, look at that. Those rock formations. They seem too regular to be natural." They made their way towards the anomaly, their excitement growing with each step. As they drew closer, it became clear that this was no natural phenomenon. The rocks formed a series of interlocking geometric shapes, too precise to have been formed by erosion or tectonic activity. "This has to be artificial," Diana breathed, her hand hovering over the smooth surface of one of the structures. "But who could have built this? And how long ago?" Their hybrid senses detected faint energy signatures emanating from beneath the surface. Following these readings, they discovered what appeared to be an entrance, hidden beneath years of corrosive weathering. As they prepared to enter the underground complex, a warning flashed across their suit displays. An unidentified ship was approaching their position rapidly. "It's got to be Crane and Zira," Peter said, his voice tight. "Their cloaking must have failed in this atmosphere." Diana's mind raced, weighing their options. "We can't abandon this discovery. It could be the key to understanding the connection between humans and Andromedans. But we can't let them get their hands on it either." Before they could decide on a course of action, a massive solar flare from the system's star bathed the planet in intense radiation. Their suits' alarms blared, warning of the rapidly increasing danger. "We're out of time," Peter shouted over the howling wind. "We need to make a decision now. Do we explore the complex or confront Crane and Zira?" As if in response to their desperate situation, their bodies began to change once again. A soft, bioluminescent glow emanated from their skin, visible even through their protective suits. Diana gasped as she felt the change ripple through her. "Peter, look at us. We're glowing." They stood at the threshold of the ancient underground complex, their glowing bodies illuminating the alien inscriptions on the walls. The fate of their mission, their lives, and potentially the future of human-Andromedan cooperation hung in the balance as they contemplated their next move. Behind them, the toxic landscape of XR-27 stretched out, with the incoming ship of their pursuers a distant speck on the horizon. Before them lay the darkness of the underground complex, promising answers to questions they hadn't even known to ask. Peter and Diana exchanged a look, their neural link allowing them to communicate without words. They knew that whatever choice they made now would have far-reaching consequences, not just for themselves, but for the future of human-Andromedan relations. With a deep breath, they made their decision and stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in the depths of this alien world. With a shared nod of understanding, Peter and Diana stepped into the darkness of the underground complex. Their bioluminescent bodies cast an eerie glow on the ancient walls, illuminating intricate patterns and symbols etched into the stone. As they descended deeper, the radiation levels increased, but instead of harming them, it seemed to fuel their transformation. Their skin shimmered with an intensifying radiance, and Peter blinked in surprise as his vision sharpened, cutting through the gloom with startling clarity. "Diana, my eyes, I can see everything," he whispered, his voice tinged with awe. She nodded, her own gaze sweeping the corridor. "Mine too. It's like the radiation is enhancing us somehow." They moved swiftly through the winding passages, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The air grew thicker, laden with the scent of ozone and something else, something alien and ancient. On the surface, Crane and Zira's ship touched down with a metallic groan. They emerged encased in bulky protective suits, their movements awkward and slow in the caustic atmosphere. "There," Zira hissed, pointing to a faint energy signature on her handheld scanner. "They went underground." Crane nodded, his face set in a grim mask behind his helmet's visor. "Then that's where we're going. Let's end this once and for all." As the pair began their arduous trek across the toxic landscape, Peter and Diana reached a vast chamber that took their breath away. The room stretched impossibly far, its ceiling lost in shadows despite their enhanced vision. At its center stood a colossal crystalline structure, pulsing with energy that sent vibrations through the floor. "It's beautiful," Diana breathed, reaching out to touch the nearest crystal formation. As her fingers made contact, a holographic interface sprang to life, bathing them in a soft blue light. Peter's mind reeled as information flooded his senses, telling a tale of an ancient civilization that spanned galaxies. "The progenitors," he murmured, his eyes wide. "They created hybrids like us, to colonize worlds like this." Diana's face lit up with understanding. "This place, it's a seed vault. It contains genetic samples, terraforming technology, everything needed to transform a hostile world." As they absorbed this revelation, their bodies began to change once more. Their skin rippled and shifted, taking on the texture and color of their surroundings. Peter looked down at his arm, watching in fascination as it blended seamlessly with the crystal structure beside him. "Adaptive camouflage," Diana said, her voice filled with wonder. "And look, our suits. We don't need them anymore." Indeed, as they removed their protective gear, they found they could breathe the toxic air with ease, their bodies now capable of metabolizing the poisonous atmosphere. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, Colonel Hawkins and Captain Zara led their rescue team through the treacherous solar storm. Their hybrid-enhanced ship groaned under the strain, but held firm. "We're approaching XR-27's atmosphere," Zara announced, her fingers dancing over the controls. "But these radiation levels, our sensors are useless." Hawkins' lips pursed. "Then we do this the old-fashioned way. Spread out and search." As the rescue team began their blind search of the planet's surface, Crane and Zira stumbled upon another entrance to the underground complex. The moment they crossed the threshold, ancient systems hummed to life, and a shrill alarm pierced the air. In the central chamber, Peter and Diana's heightened senses alerted them to the intrusion. They shared a quick glance, their neural link allowing for instantaneous communication. "We can use our camouflage," Peter thought. "Ambush them before they know we're here." Diana nodded, but as she prepared to move, a surge of energy coursed through her body. The air around her filled with a sweet, intoxicating scent. Pheromones, she realized, powerful enough to affect both humans and Andromedans. Before they could act on their plan, the chamber came alive with shimmering figures, holographic guardians, their forms flickering as they assessed the hybrid couple. "Intruders," one guardian intoned, its voice echoing through the vast space. "Yet, potential inheritors." Peter and Diana found themselves surrounded, the guardians' gazes filled with conflicting directives. In that moment of tension, multiple events converged. Crane and Zira burst into the chamber, their protective suits already showing signs of degradation from the corrosive atmosphere. Their eyes widened at the sight before them, the massive crystal structure, the holographic guardians, and somewhere in the mix, their hybrid targets. The rescue team, led by Hawkins and Zara, finally located the underground entrance. They rushed in, weapons at the ready, unsure of what they would find. And at the center of it all stood Peter and Diana, their bodies shimmering with newfound power, holders of ancient knowledge that could reshape the future of human-Andromedan relations. The chamber fell silent as all parties assessed each other, the air thick with tension and possibility. The next move would determine not just their fates, but potentially the course of galactic history. Civilization. In that frozen moment of tension, Peter and Diana's bodies shimmered, their newly evolved abilities responding instinctively to the threat. Their skin rippled and shifted, taking on the hues and textures of the surrounding chamber. Within seconds, they had vanished from sight, blending seamlessly with the ancient architecture. The sudden disappearance caught Crane and Zira off guard, their eyes darting around the vast space in confusion. "Where did they go?" Zira hissed, her voice distorted by her deteriorating suit. Crane didn't respond, too focused on the burning sensation creeping across his skin as the corrosive atmosphere seeped through weakened seams. He stumbled forward, desperation overriding caution. As the intruders moved deeper into the chamber, holographic barriers sprang to life, creating a disorienting maze of light and shadow. Crane and Zira found themselves trapped in a labyrinth of their own confusion, their movements becoming increasingly erratic. Peter and Diana, now fully camouflaged, observed the scene with their enhanced senses. Their neural link hummed with silent communication as they coordinated their movements, staying one step ahead of the floundering extremists. "They're breaking down," Diana thought to Peter, her mental voice tinged with a mix of pity and satisfaction. "The atmosphere is getting to them." Peter's response came swift and clear. "We need to contain them before they damage themselves or the complex. Look at the crystal. It's reacting to their presence." Indeed, the massive crystalline structure at the center of the chamber pulsed with increasing intensity. Waves of energy radiated outward, interacting with the hybrid couple in unexpected ways. Peter felt his muscles surge with renewed strength, while Diana's already keen senses sharpened further. As Crane and Zira stumbled through another holographic barrier, the chamber seemed to come alive. Hidden compartments revealed themselves, exposing arrays of advanced technology. Sleek devices that could only be terraforming equipment emerged alongside containers housing what appeared to be genetic manipulation tools. The sight momentarily stunned the intruders, giving Peter and Diana the opening they needed. In perfect synchronization, they decloaked, their bioluminescent bodies casting an eerie glow throughout the chamber. Crane and Zira recoiled, momentarily blinded by the sudden burst of light. Before they could recover, the holographic guardians sprang into action. Energy fields materialized around the extremists, trapping them in place. "No!" Crane roared, straining against the invisible bonds. "You can't do this. We're trying to save humanity." Diana stepped forward, her hybrid physiology now processing the toxic atmosphere with ease. As she approached, a sweet, intoxicating scent filled the air. Powerful pheromones that affected both humans and Andromedans. "Save humanity?" she said, her voice calm but firm. "By denying us the chance to evolve? To adapt to the challenges of the universe?" Peter joined her, his eyes locked on their captives. "You've seen what we can do, what we've become. This isn't about replacing humanity or Andromedans. It's about bringing out the best in both." As he spoke, Peter reached out with his mind, establishing a telepathic link with Crane and Zira. He delved into their memories, seeking the source of their hatred and fear. The crystalline structure reacted to the heightened psychic activity, projecting a series of holographic images around them. They watched in awe as the rise and fall of the progenitor civilization played out before their eyes. "Look," Diana breathed, pointing to a scene of conflict. "They face the same divide. Factions arguing over genetic hybridization." Peter nodded, his expression grim. "And it led to their downfall. We can't make the same mistake." As the images faded, the chamber filled with a new energy. Pulses of light emanated from the crystal, washing over everyone present. Peter and Diana felt their abilities refine further, gaining unprecedented control over their evolved physiology. Crane and Zira, still trapped in the energy fields, began to writhe as the pulses affected them. Their skin shimmered, taking on a faint bioluminescent glow. What's happening to us? Zira gasped, panic evident in her voice. Before Peter or Diana could respond, the chamber's entrance burst open. Colonel Hawkins and Captain Zara led their team into the vast space, their weapons raised but expressions filled with wonder. "Stand down," Hawkins ordered, quickly assessing the situation. "Peter, Diana, are you all right?" Diana nodded, her attention still fixed on the captured extremists. "We're fine, Colonel, but I think we've stumbled onto something much bigger than we ever imagined." As the rescue team secured Crane and Zira, Peter turned back to the crystalline structure. Its pulses had subsided, but the energy in the air remained palpable. "This technology," he said, running his hand along a nearby console, "it could revolutionize everything. Human Andromedan relations, colonization, even our basic understanding of genetics." Captain Zara approached, her eyes wide as she took in the ancient marvels around them. "We'll need to set up a research station here. This knowledge can't fall into the wrong hands." As if in response to her words, a piercing alarm cut through the air. The chamber's walls flickered with urgent warnings. The solar flare, Diana realized, her enhanced senses picking up the surge in radiation. "It's intensifying. We need to leave now." Peter's mind raced, calculating their options. "We can't leave all this behind. We need to download as much data as we can before—" His words were cut off by a violent tremor that shook the entire complex. The race against time had begun, with the fate of two civilizations hanging in the balance. Balance. The tremors intensified, sending vibrations through the ancient structure that threatened to tear it apart. "We don't have time for a full download," Peter shouted over the din of alarms and crumbling rock. His fingers flew across the holographic interface, selecting critical data packages. "Diana, focus on terraforming and genetic stabilization. It's our best chance to salvage something from this." Diana nodded, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with heightened activity as she interfaced directly with the progenitor systems. Information flooded her consciousness, vast and intricate beyond comprehension. She filtered through it, extracting the most crucial elements and funneling them into portable storage devices they had salvaged from their gear. Colonel Hawkins barked orders to his team, directing them to secure Crane and Zira. The two extremists writhed within their energy field prisons, their skin taking on an otherworldly sheen. The pulses from the crystal structure had triggered an unexpected transformation, leaving them in a state of partial hybridization. What's happening to us?" Crane gasped, staring at his hands in a mixture of horror and fascination as faint bioluminescent patterns danced across his skin. Zira's eyes darted wildly, her breath coming in short pants. "This can't be real. We can't be turning into them." Captain Zara approached the colonel, her face grim. "Sir, our ship's systems are going haywire. The radiation levels are off the charts, and it's affecting our hybrid tech. We need to leave now, or we might not have a way off this rock." Hawkins cursed under his breath, then turned to Peter and Diana. "Time's up. We need to go. Whatever you've got will have to be enough." Peter disengaged from the interface, his palms sweating from the influx of information. "We've got the essentials, but there's so much more we're leaving behind." Another violent tremor rocked the chamber, sending chunks of the ceiling crashing to the floor. The crystal structure at the center pulsed erratically, its energy fluctuating wildly. "No time for regrets," Diana said, grabbing Peter's arm. "We need to move." The team sprinted for the exit, Hawkins and Zara half dragging the disoriented Crane and Zira. As they emerged onto the planet's surface, the full fury of XR-27's atmosphere assaulted them. Wind howled, carrying corrosive particles that ate away at their protective gear. Peter and Diana, their hybrid physiology now fully adapted, stood unprotected against the onslaught. They watched as the others struggled with their deteriorating suits, the realization dawning that their rescue ship might not be the sanctuary they had hoped for. "The ship's propulsion is fried," Zara reported, her voice tight with tension. "We're dead in the water unless we can find a way to counteract this radiation." Peter's mind raced, drawing on the newly acquired progenitor knowledge. "We might have a solution, but it's risky. We need to modify the ship using some of the terraforming tech from the complex." Diana nodded, already moving towards the ship. "It's our only shot. We can use the atmospheric manipulation devices to create a protective field around the ship. As the team scrambled to salvage what they could from the rapidly collapsing underground structure, Peter and Diana set to work on the ship. Their hands moved with uncanny precision, guided by the ancient knowledge now coursing through their veins. The others watched in awe as the hybrid couple seamlessly integrated progenitor components into the ship's systems. Sleek, crystalline structures began to grow along the hull, pulsing with the same energy they had witnessed in the underground chamber. As they worked, Diana became acutely aware of a change in her body's chemistry. The stress and exertion had triggered an intense release of hybrid pheromones, filling the air with an intoxicating scent. She saw its effects ripple through the team, heightened alertness, quicker reflexes, and a palpable tension that crackled like electricity. Peter felt it too, his telepathic link with Diana strengthening to unprecedented levels. Their movements became a perfectly choreographed dance, anticipating each other's needs without a word spoken. "Almost there," Peter announced, his voice strained with effort. "Just need to calibrate the energy field to the planet's magnetic poles." A deafening roar filled the air as the ground beneath them began to split apart. The planet itself seemed to be tearing at the seams, unable to withstand the onslaught of the solar flare. "Now or never," Hawkins shouted, ushering the team into the modified ship. As the last of them stumbled aboard, Peter and Diana took their positions at the newly integrated control interface. Their hands sank into the crystalline structure, forming a direct neural link with the ship's hybrid systems. "Initiating launch sequence," Diana called out, her voice resonating with an otherworldly timbre. The ship shuddered, its new components coming to life. A shimmering energy field enveloped the vessel, deflecting the worst of the planet's corrosive atmosphere. As they lifted off, the ground where they had stood moments before collapsed into a yawning chasm. Peter's consciousness expanded, tapping into the ship's sensors. He could feel the magnetic fields of XR-27 pulsing around them, and with a thought, he aligned their trajectory to ride the planet's natural energy currents. As they broke through the atmosphere, a final surge of energy from the dying world below washed over them. The ship's hybrid systems reacted, absorbing and channeling the burst. Everyone on board felt a jolt, a sensation of change rippling through their bodies. Crane and Zira, still reeling from their partial hybridization, let out simultaneous gasps as their transformation accelerated. The others felt it too, subtle at first, then unmistakable as their bodies began to adapt to the ship's new hybrid nature. "What's happening to us?" Zara asked, staring at her hands as faint patterns began to appear on her skin. "We're changing," Peter replied, his voice filled with wonder and a hint of trepidation. "All of us. The ship, too. We've become something new." As the hybrid vessel hurtled through space, its systems reconfiguring in ways that defied conventional understanding, the team grappled with their rapidly evolving physiologies. The progenitor knowledge pulsed through the ship's crystalline structures, hinting at possibilities beyond their wildest imaginations. Diana's gaze met Peter's, their enhanced connection allowing for a wordless exchange of thoughts and emotions. They both knew that their return to Xerxes would mark the beginning of something unprecedented, a new chapter in the saga of human and Andromedan relations. As the familiar contours of the outpost appeared on their view screens, the hybrid ship slowed its approach. The team braced themselves for what lay ahead, knowing that the consequences of their transformation and the secrets they carried would reshape the future of both their species. Civilizations would be forever altered. As the hybrid vessel decelerated, approaching the familiar silhouette of Xerxes, an unexpected complication arose. "We're experiencing interference with the outpost communication systems," Peter reported, his brow furrowed as he interfaced with the ship's hybrid controls. "Our vessel's unique energy signature is scrambling their frequencies." Colonel Hawkins stepped forward, his newly acquired hybrid traits giving him an otherworldly presence. "We can't risk a misunderstanding. Initiate manual docking procedures." Diana nodded, her fingers dancing across the crystalline interface. As she manipulated the controls, the ship's hybrid systems interacted with the outpost's standard technology, causing an unexpected surge of energy. Alarms blared throughout the outpost as the artificial gravity systems flickered and failed in several sections. Through the viewports, they could see figures suddenly floating, scrambling for handholds in the zero-gravity chaos. "Brace for impact," Hawkins warned as they made their final approach. The docking clamps engaged with a resounding clang, sending vibrations through the ship's hull. As the airlock cycled, Peter and Diana exchanged a meaningful glance, their enhanced connection allowing for a silent conversation about the challenges that lay ahead. The team disembarked, their altered physiologies immediately drawing attention. Dr. Marcus Robertson, the outpost's lead xenobiologist, stood at the forefront of the welcoming committee, his eyes wide with a mixture of scientific curiosity and barely concealed alarm. "My God, Robertson breathed, taking in the sight of Peter and Diana's more pronounced hybrid features. "What happened out there?" Before they could respond, Robertson snapped into action. "All returning personnel to the medical bay immediately. That includes our guests," he added, nodding towards the subdued forms of Crane and Zira. As they made their way through the corridors, the team couldn't help but notice the stares and whispers that followed them. The outpost inhabitants, a mix of humans and Andromedans, recoiled from their changed appearance, fear and fascination warring on their faces. In the medical bay, Robertson and his team worked feverishly, conducting thorough scans of each returnee. Peter and Diana watched as the doctor's expression shifted from concern to excitement as he pored over the results. "Fascinating," Robertson muttered, his eyes glued to the holographic display of Diana's scan. "Your hybridization has progressed far beyond anything we've seen before. And this," he pointed to a biochemical readout, "I've never encountered anything like it." Diana felt a sudden warmth spread through her body, a tingling sensation that seemed to emanate from her core. She noticed Peter's nostrils flare, his eyes dilating as he caught her scent. Robertson's eyes widened as he ran another scan. "It appears your body is producing a unique compound. Initially, I thought it was a new type of pheromone, but it's far more complex than that. It shares properties with both human and Andromedan reproductive fluids." Before they could fully process this information, the medical bay doors slid open, revealing Ambassador Jonathan Reeves and a delegation of human scientists and military advisors. Close behind them came Counselor Xena, accompanied by a group of Andromedan experts. "We need answers," Reeves demanded, his voice taut with tension. "What exactly did you find on XR-27? As Peter and Diana began their debriefing, they noticed a subtle shift in the room's atmosphere. The human and Andromedan delegates seemed to gravitate closer to them, their pupils dilating and breaths quickening. Diana realized with a start that her body's new biochemical production was affecting those around her. Midway through their explanation of the progenitor technology, a commotion erupted from the far end of the medical bay. Crane and Zira, their bodies now capable of limited camouflage, had slipped past their guards and were making a break for freedom. Peter's enhanced senses kicked into overdrive. He could hear their rapid heartbeats, smell the fear and persistence radiating off them. Without a word, he locked eyes with Diana, and they moved in perfect synchronization to intercept the escapees. The chase led them through the winding corridors of the outpost, Peter using his telepathic abilities to track the fugitives' frantic thoughts. They cornered them in one of the agricultural domes, the lush greenery providing a stark contrast to the sterile hallways they had just navigated. "It's over," Peter called out, his voice resonating with newfound authority. "There's nowhere left to run." Crane and Zira emerged from behind a hydroponic array, their skin rippling with chameleon-like patterns. "You don't understand," Zira pleaded, her voice trembling. "This hybridization, it's an abomination. We can't let it spread." As Diana stepped forward to reason with them, her foot caught on a stray vine. She stumbled, her hand brushing against the hydroponic system's water supply. In that instant, a drop of her biochemical-infused sweat mixed with a nutrient-rich solution. The effect was immediate and startling. The plants nearest to the contaminated water supply began to change, their structures shifting and morphing at an accelerated rate. New hybrid species sprouted before their eyes, displaying characteristics of both Earth and Andromedan flora. Crane and Zira watched in stunned silence as vibrant alien flowers bloomed and fruit-bearing vines snaked up the dome's support structures. The rapidly evolving plants seemed to pulse with an inner light, mirroring the bioluminescent patterns on Peter and Diana's skin. This is impossible," Crane whispered, his grit visibly crumbling in the face of this wondrous transformation. Peter seized the moment of doubt, reaching out with his mind to establish a telepathic link with the two extremists. As their mental barriers fell away, he shared with them the awe and potential he had witnessed in the progenitor complex. The agricultural dome continued its rapid metamorphosis around them, a living testament to the power of hybridization. As Crane and Zira's resistance waned, Peter and Diana exchanged a look of cautious hope. They had taken the first step towards bridging the divide between humans and Andromedans, but the path ahead remained uncertain. The sound of approaching footsteps broke the moment of contemplation. Dr. Robertson burst into the dome, followed closely by Ambassador Reeves and Counselor Zena. Their expressions of shock mirrored those of Crane and Zira as they took in the transformed environment. "What have you done?" Reeves breathed, his eyes darting from the alien flora to Peter and Diana's glowing forms. Before they could answer, Robertson's scientific curiosity took over. He approached one of the newly formed fruit-bearing vines, scanner in hand. "These plants, they're producing nutrient profiles unlike anything we've ever seen. The potential applications for colony sustainability are staggering." As the implications of their discovery began to sink in, Peter felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. The events of the past few days, the mission to XR-27, their transformation, and now this unexpected development, had taken their toll. Diana sensed his fatigue through their connection and gently took his hand. "We need rest," she announced to the group. "There will be time for further explanations and decisions tomorrow." Reeves and Zena exchanged a look of concern, but nodded their agreement. As Peter and Diana made their way back to their quarters, they could hear the excited chatter of scientists and the urgent whispers of the diplomats fade behind them. In the privacy of their room, Peter and Diana finally allowed themselves a moment of vulnerability. As they prepared for rest, they noticed a faint glow emanating from their skin, pulsing in sync with their heartbeats. "What's happening to us?" Diana whispered, a mix of wonder and apprehension in her voice. Peter pulled her close, feeling the warmth of her hybrid physiology against his own. "I don't know," he admitted, "but whatever comes next, we'll face it together." As they settled into bed, their bioluminescent patterns dimmed to a soft, comforting glow. Outside their quarters, the outpost buzzed with activity, grappling with the implications of the day's events. The future of human-Andromedan relations hung in the balance, with Peter and Diana at its center. In the agricultural dome, the hybrid plants continued their silent evolution, a testament to the untapped potential that lay within the merging of two worlds. As Xerxes IV's night cycle began, the first seeds of a new era had been planted, their growth as inevitable and unstoppable as the cosmic forces that had brought humanity and the Andromedans together. Together, as the cosmic dance of stars continued outside their window, Peter and Diana drifted into a deep restorative sleep. The soft chime of the outpost's dawn cycle roused them from their slumber. As consciousness returned, Peter became aware of a gentle, pulsating light filling the room. He blinked, momentarily disoriented, before realizing the source of the illumination. "Diana," he whispered, his voice a mix of awe and concern. "Look at us." Diana's eyes fluttered open, widening as she took in the sight of their bodies emitting a soft, ethereal glow. The bioluminescence seemed to ebb and flow in sync with their breathing, creating mesmerizing patterns across their skin. Before they could fully process this latest development, the comm system in their quarters crackled to life. Dr. Robertson's voice, tinged with impossibly strong excitement, filled the room. "Peter, Diana, I need you in the medical bay immediately. My scans are picking up some extraordinary readings from your quarters." As they made their way through the corridors, they couldn't help but notice the stares and hushed whispers of the outpost's inhabitants. Their glowing forms drew a mix of fascination and apprehension from both humans and Andromedans alike. In the medical bay, Dr. Robertson was a flurry of activity, darting between holographic displays and an array of complex instruments. His eyes lit up as Peter and Diana entered, their bioluminescent glow casting dancing shadows on the walls. "Remarkable," he breathed, immediately ushering them onto examination tables. "Your hybridization process has accelerated beyond anything we've seen before." As Robertson ran his scans, his expression shifted from excitement to astonishment. The nanomaterials we observed in Diana's body yesterday, they're present in Peter now as well. But there's more to it than simple replication. He pulled up a three-dimensional model of their molecular structures, highlighting areas where the nanomaterials interacted. Your bodies are producing complementary nanomaterials. They're interacting in ways we've never seen before, creating new structures and functions. Peter felt a tingling sensation as Robertson passed a scanner over his arm. "What does this mean for us, Doctor?" Robertson's eyes gleamed with scientific fervor. "It means your hybrid bond is deepening on a fundamental level. These interactions could lead to enhanced abilities, perhaps even beyond what we've already witnessed. The implications are, well, they're staggering." As if on cue, a commotion outside the medical bay drew their attention. Ambassador Reeves and Counselor Xena strode in, flanked by a retinue of human and Andromedan officials. "Dr. Robertson," Reeves began, his tone clipped and formal, "we need a full report on the latest developments. The joint leadership has convened an emergency meeting to discuss the progenitor technology and its effects." Xena's multifaceted eyes focused on Peter and Diana, a mix of curiosity and caution in her gaze. "We've decided to establish a joint research team to study this phenomenon. You two will be the primary subjects of our investigation." Peter felt a surge of unease at the Andromedan counselor's words. He glanced at Diana, their enhanced connection allowing him to sense her similar discomfort. "With all due respect," Diana began, her voice steady despite the tension in the room, "we're not lab specimens. We have rights, and we should have a say in how this research is conducted." A murmur of agreement rose from some of the outpost staff present in the medical bay. Dr. Robertson stepped forward, a look of concern on his face. "Ambassador Counselor, I must insist that we prioritize Peter and Diana's well-being in any research initiative. The ethical implications of their situation cannot be overlooked." As the debate intensified, Peter found his attention drawn elsewhere. His heightened senses, further enhanced by the latest developments in his hybrid physiology, picked up on subtle energy patterns permeating the outpost. He could almost see the flow of power through the facility's systems, a complex web of interactions that pulsed and shifted with every passing moment. Acting on instinct, he reached out with his mind, attempting to interface with the energy field. To his surprise, he found he could influence it, subtly altering the flow of power. "Diana," he whispered, not wanting to draw attention from the ongoing discussion. "Can you feel that? The energy all around us?" She nodded, her eyes widening as she too began to explore this newfound ability. Together they experimented, learning to manipulate the outpost systems with nothing more than thought and will. Their quiet exploration was interrupted by the sudden blaring of alarms. Colonel Hawkins burst into the medical bay, his face a mask of controlled urgency. "We have a situation in the agricultural dome," he announced, his eyes locking onto Peter and Diana. "The hybrid plants, they're evolving at an exponential rate. We need you two there now." As they raced towards the dome, Peter couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the precipice of something monumental. The outpost buzzed with a mixture of fear and anticipation, the air thick with the promise of change. The agricultural dome came into view, its transparent walls now obscured by a riot of alien vegetation. Vines snaked across the structure, bearing fruits of impossible colors and shapes. Flowers bloomed and wilted in a matter of seconds, releasing shimmering spores that danced in the artificial light. Dr. Robertson pushed past them, scanner in hand, his face a mixture of scientific ecstasy and growing concern. "The fruits," he exclaimed, gesturing wildly at the nearest vine. "They're filled with the same nanomaterials we found in your bodies. The potential applications, the risks." As Robertson's team began collecting samples, Peter noticed Crane and Zira being led into the dome by a security detail. The two former extremists looked different, their features softened by the initial stages of hybridization. Their eyes, once filled with hatred and fear, now held a glimmer of something new. Curiosity, perhaps even hope. We'd like to speak with you, Crane said, his voice lacking its former edge, about the hybridization process, about what it means for our future. Peter and Diana exchanged a look, sensing the weight of the moment. As they prepared to engage with Crane and Zira, the dome's environment continued to shift and evolve around them, a living testament to the transformative power they now wielded. The conversation that followed would be the first of many, as humans and Andromedans alike grappled with the implications of their rapidly changing reality. Peter and Diana stood at the center of it all, their glowing forms a beacon of what was to come, for better or worse. Worse, the weight of their newfound responsibility settled over them as they prepared to face the challenges ahead. As the first rays of Xerxes IV's artificial dawn filtered through the outpost windows, Peter stirred from his restless sleep. He blinked, momentarily disoriented by the intensified glow emanating from his and Diana's skin. The bioluminescence had grown stronger overnight, casting a soft, pulsating light throughout their quarters. "Diana," he whispered, gently rousing his partner. "Something's changed." Diana's eyes fluttered open, widening as she took in their heightened radiance. Before they could fully process this latest development, the comm system crackled to life with Dr. Robertson's urgent voice. "Peter, Diana, report to the medical bay immediately. We're picking up some extraordinary readings from your quarters." As they made their way through the corridors, they couldn't help but notice the increased attention from the outpost's inhabitants. Humans and Andromedans alike stared openly, a mix of awe and trepidation in their eyes. In the medical bay, Dr. Robertson was a whirlwind of activity, darting between holographic displays and an array of complex instruments. His eyes lit up as Peter and Diana entered, their intensified glow casting dancing shadows on the walls. "Fascinating," he breathed, immediately guiding them to examination tables. "The nanomaterial production in your bodies has increased exponentially overnight. We're seeing unprecedented changes in your physiology." As Robertson ran his scans, Peter noticed intricate patterns forming on his skin. He glanced at Diana, seeing similar markings appearing on her body, a mesmerizing blend of human-like tattoos and Andromedan bioluminescent designs. "These patterns," Robertson mused, tracing a finger just above Peter's arm, "they're not just cosmetic. They seem to be conduits for energy manipulation." As if on cue, Peter felt a tingling sensation coursing through his body. He reached out, focusing on the air around him, and to his amazement, the temperature began to shift. Diana gasped beside him, her hand outstretched as she manipulated the humidity in her immediate vicinity. "Incredible," Robertson whispered, furiously inputting data into his terminal. "You're demonstrating environmental manipulation abilities. This could be revolutionary for survival on harsh alien worlds." Their examination was interrupted by the arrival of Ambassador Reeves and Counselor Xena, their faces a mix of concern and impossibly strong excitement. "Doctor," Reeves began, "we need a full report on these developments. And Peter, Diana, we have a situation in the agricultural dome that requires your immediate attention." As they hurried towards the dome, Peter and Diana exchanged worried glances. The hybrid plants they had inadvertently created were evolving at an alarming rate, and they could sense the growing unease among the outpost's leadership. Entering the agricultural dome was like stepping into an alien jungle. Vines snaked across every surface, bearing fruits of impossible colors and shapes. Flowers bloomed and wilted in seconds, releasing shimmering spores that danced in the air. Dr. Robertson pushed past them, scanner in hand, his face a mixture of scientific ecstasy and growing concern. "The fruits!" he exclaimed, gesturing wildly at the nearest vine. "They're filled with concentrated nanomaterials, similar to what we've found in your bodies. The implications are staggering." As Robertson's team collected samples, Peter noticed a group of volunteers being led into the dome. Among them were Crane and Zira, the former extremists whose partial hybridization had begun to soften their stance. "We've been conducting controlled experiments," Counselor Xena explained, her multifaceted eyes fixed on the volunteers. Consumption of these fruits triggers limited hybridization effects in both humans and Andromedans. Peter felt a surge of unease at this revelation. Are you sure that's wise? We don't fully understand the long-term effects of hybridization. Before Xena could respond, Peter and Diana were hit by a wave of alien sensations. The hybrid plants were reaching out to them, communicating on a level beyond words. Images and impressions flooded their minds. The complex ecosystem developing within the dome, the potential for accelerated growth, the secrets of adaptation and survival. We can communicate with them, Diana gasped, her eyes wide with wonder. Peter, do you realize what this means? We could revolutionize agriculture for resource-poor colonies. As the implications of their discovery sank in, Ambassador Reeves cleared his throat. In light of these developments, we've made a decision. We're initiating a small-scale terraforming experiment on a nearby uninhabited moon, using the nanomaterials produced by you two and these plants. The announcement sent a ripple of excitement and apprehension through the assembled group. Peter could sense the conflicting emotions. Hope for a brighter future, mixed with fear of the unknown. We'll need your help, Reeves continued, his gaze fixed on Peter and Diana. Your ability to manipulate energy and communicate with these hybrid plants could be crucial to the success of this experiment. As preparations for the terraforming project began in earnest, Peter and Diana found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. They worked closely with Dr. Robertson and his team, learning to project their nanomaterial-infused energy onto test surfaces, simulating the conditions they would face on the moon. During a rare moment of respite, Peter and Diana stood at the observation deck, watching as the first shuttle departed for the target moon. Their bodies glowed in unison, pulsating with the potential of what was to come. Are we ready for this? Diana asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Peter took her hand, feeling the warmth of their shared energy flowing between them. I don't know, he admitted, but whatever happens, we'll face it together. As they stood there, contemplating the challenges ahead, neither of them could have predicted the far-reaching consequences of their actions. Beyond the confines of Xerxes IV, news of the hybridization process was beginning to spread, sparking intense debate and speculation across human and Andromedan colonies alike. And in the shadows, unseen and unknown, a group of extremists from both species was already forming, their hearts filled with fear and hatred for the changes that Peter and Diana represented. The first seeds of conflict had been sown, and the future of both humanity and the Andromedans hung in the balance. Balance and the future of both humanity and the Andromedans hung in the balance. As the first shuttle departed for the target moon, Peter and Diana felt a surge of anticipation. Their unique abilities would be put to the ultimate test in this terraforming experiment. Days passed in a blur of activity as they worked tirelessly alongside Dr. Robertson and his team, projecting their nanomaterial-infused energy onto simulated lunar surfaces. The results were nothing short of extraordinary. Within a week, reports from the moon's surface began flooding in. Patches of breathable atmosphere were forming at an unprecedented rate, and the first signs of microbial life had emerged in newly created lakes and soil. Peter stood at the control room's main viewport, watching as real-time data streamed in from the moon. His skin pulsed with an intense glow, reflecting his excitement and concentration. Diana joined him, her hand intertwining with his as they marveled at their creation. It's happening so fast, she whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. We're literally watching a world come to life. Dr. Robertson burst into the room, his face flushed with excitement. You need to see this, he exclaimed, pulling up a holographic display. The rate of transformation is exponential. We're seeing years of projected progress in a matter of days. As news of their success spread, the outpost buzzed with a new energy. Human and Andromedan scientists alike clamored for a chance to study the phenomenon. Within days, a team of researchers led by Dr. Ilara Voss and Genthar arrived at Xerxes IV. Dr. Voss, a tall, lean woman with piercing blue eyes, wasted no time in setting up her equipment. Your work here is groundbreaking, she told Peter and Diana as she prepared for their first examination. The implications for colonization and resource management are staggering. Genthar, her Andromedan counterpart, nodded in agreement. His multifaceted eyes gleamed with curiosity as he observed the hybrid couple. We are particularly interested in the way your bodies have adapted to produce and channel this nanomaterial energy, he added. As the examinations progressed, Dr. Robertson made a startling discovery. During a routine scan, he detected a new substance being produced within Peter and Diana's bodies. It's a highly concentrated form of nanomaterial-infused liquid, he explained, his voice trembling with excitement. Similar to what we found in the hybrid plant pods, but far more potent. The substance, quickly dubbed human nectar by the research team, became the focus of intense study. Initial tests on lab animals showed remarkable results, rapid healing of injuries and signs of enhanced vitality. The discovery sent shockwaves through the outpost. Debates erupted over the potential applications and ethical implications of the nectar. Some saw it as a miracle cure, while others feared unforeseen consequences. Amidst the growing controversy, a young Andromedan scientist named Lyra Jen arrived at the outpost. Her expertise in xenobiology made her a valuable addition to the research team, and she quickly became fascinated by Peter and Diana's unique physiology. One afternoon, as Lyra Jen toured the facilities with Peter and Diana, disaster struck. The Andromedan scientist suddenly collapsed, her body racked by severe dehydration, a common issue for her species in human standard environments. In her disoriented state, Lyra Jen stumbled into Dr. Robertson's lab. Her vision blurred. She reached for what she thought was a container of water. Before anyone could stop her, she had consumed a sample of the human nectar. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Lyra Jen's body began to convulse, her skin rippling with waves of bioluminescence. Peter and Diana watched in horror as the Andromedan scientist underwent a rapid transformation before their eyes. "We need to stabilize her," Peter shouted, reaching out with his energy manipulation abilities to try and calm the chaotic nanomaterials surging through Lyra Jen's body. Diana joined him, their combined efforts creating a cocoon of pulsating energy around the thrashing Andromedan. For what seemed like hours, they worked tirelessly, guiding the transformation process as best they could. When the energy finally dissipated, Lyra Jen lay still on the lab floor. Her body had changed, taking on characteristics similar to Peter and Diana's hybrid form. As she opened her eyes, now glowing with an inner light, the full impact of what had happened began to sink in. I can feel it," Lyra Jen whispered, her voice filled with awe and fear. "The energy, the connection to everything around us. It's overwhelming." The incident sent shockwaves through the outpost leadership. Ambassador Reeves and Counselor Zena immediately implemented stricter containment protocols for all hybridization-related materials. The volunteer program for controlled hybridization was accelerated, hoping to gather more data on the process and its effects. As Lyra Jen began to explore her new abilities under Peter and Diana's guidance, the three hybrids formed an unexpected bond. They spent hours in the agricultural dome, communing with the ever-evolving plant life and pushing the boundaries of their energy manipulation skills. Meanwhile, on the terraformed moon, life was evolving at an astounding pace. Peter and Diana's connection to the lunar surface intensified, allowing them to sense the emergence of complex organisms far ahead of the projected timeline. "It's like we can feel every heartbeat, every new species coming into existence," Diana explained to Dr. Voss during one of their daily briefings. "The moon is alive, and it's calling to us." As the outpost grappled with these rapid developments, none of them were aware of the danger lurking in their midst. Victor Helios and Zarovex, leaders of a human Andromedan extremist group, had successfully infiltrated Xerxes IV. Disguised as maintenance workers and support staff, they moved through the facility, gathering intelligence and preparing to strike against the hybridization project. One evening, as Peter, Diana, and Lyra Jen practiced their abilities in a secure training room, they felt a sudden disturbance in the energy field permeating the outpost. Exchanging worried glances, they realized that the delicate balance they had been maintaining was about to be shattered. Shattered. A deafening explosion rocked the outpost, plunging the facility into darkness. Emergency lights flickered to life, casting an eerie red glow throughout the corridors. What was that? Diana gasped, stumbling as the floor beneath them trembled. Peter steadied her, his eyes scanning the room. I don't know, but something's very wrong. Lyra Zhen's multifaceted eyes widened, her newly acquired hybrid senses tingling with danger. We're under attack, she whispered, her voice infused with fear and certainty. As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the facility. The intercom crackled to life, Ambassador Reeves's voice strained but authoritative. Attention all personnel. We have a security breach. This is not a drill. Implement lockdown protocols immediately. The trio exchanged glances, their shared empathic link humming with tension. Without a word, they moved in unison, racing towards the main research lab. As they navigated the chaotic corridors, they encountered panicked staff members and confused researchers. Stay calm and follow emergency procedures, Peter called out, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. They rounded a corner and came face to face with Dr. Robertson, his arms full of research materials. Thank goodness you're here, he exclaimed, relief evident in his voice. We need to secure the lab. The human nectar samples. His words were cut short by a nearby explosion. The wall to their left crumbled, revealing a group of armed intruders. At their head stood Victor Helios and Zaravex, their faces contorted with hate and willpower. There they are, Zaravex hissed, pointing at Peter, Diana, and Lyra Zhen. The abominations. Victor raised a strange-looking weapon, its barrel glowing with an otherworldly energy. This ends now, he growled. Peter reacted instinctively, throwing up an energy shield just as Victor fired. The blast hit the barrier, sending ripples of nanomaterial-infused energy cascading around them. Dr. Robertson, get to the lab, Diana shouted, her body glowing intensely as she channeled her power. We'll hold them off. The scientist nodded, clutching the precious research materials to his chest as he sprinted down the corridor. Lyra Zhen stepped forward, her newly acquired abilities manifesting as tendrils of energy that snaked towards the attackers. We don't want to hurt you, she pleaded, her voice resonating with an otherworldly harmony. Please stand down. Victor laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Hurt us? You're the ones who need to be eliminated. You're a threat to the purity of both our species. The extremists opened fire, their weapons discharging bursts of energy designed to disrupt the nanomaterials in hybrid bodies. Peter, Diana, and Lyra Zhen moved in perfect synchronization, their amplified abilities allowing them to dodge and deflect the incoming attacks. Diana reached out with her mind, connecting with the hybrid plants in the nearby agricultural dome. Vines burst through the walls, entangling several of the attackers. Peter manipulated the energy around them, creating localized gravity wells that pulled weapons from the extremists' hands. Lyra Zhen, still new to her abilities but driven by instinct and the support of her companions, focused on disrupting the attackers' nanomaterial dampening technology. Her efforts created openings for Peter and Diana to neutralize threats without causing lethal harm. As they fought, the trio became aware of Colonel Hawkins and his security team approaching from the opposite direction. The colonel's voice crackled over their comms. We've got your backs. Push them towards us. With rekindled tenacity, Peter, Diana, and Lyra Zhen pressed forward. Their bodies glowed with intensity, nanomaterial-infused energy pulsing in harmony. They moved as one, their shared empathic link allowing for flawless coordination. Victor and Zaravex, realizing they were being outmaneuvered, retreated towards the main research lab. If we can't have the research, no one will, Victor shouted, brandishing a device that pulsed with ominous energy. The hybrid trio gave chase, their enhanced speed allowing them to close the gap. They burst into the lab just as Victor was about to activate the device. Dr. Robertson stood at the far end of the room, shielding critical research materials with his body. Stop, Peter commanded, his voice resonating with authority. You don't understand what you're doing. This research could benefit both our species. Zaravex sneered, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with fanaticism. Benefit? You're destroying what makes us unique. We won't let you turn everyone into freaks like you. Diana stepped forward, her hands outstretched in a placating gesture. We're not trying to force this on anyone. We're exploring possibilities, trying to bridge the gap between our species. Lies, Victor spat, his finger hovering over the activation switch of his device. You're playing God, and we're here to stop you. Lyra Jen, drawing on her scientific background and newfound hybrid insight, spoke up. The nanomaterials don't destroy what we are. They enhance us, allow us to understand each other in ways we never could before. Please give us a chance to show you. For a moment, uncertainty flickered across Zarovex's face. Victor, seeing his companion's perseverance waver, snarled and lunged for the device. Enough talk! Time seemed to slow as Peter, Diana, and Lyrajan reacted. Their bodies moved in perfect unison, channeling their combined energy into a focused beam. The nanomaterial-infused power struck Victor's hand just as he reached for the switch, enveloping both him and the device in a cocoon of swirling energy. Victor's eyes widened in shock as the nanomaterials began to interact with his body. Zarovex cried out, reaching for her companion, but held back by the intense energy field. As the extremist leaders stood frozen in the grip of the hybrid energy, Colonel Hawkins and his team burst into the lab, quickly securing the room and the remaining attackers. Peter, Diana, and Lyra Jen maintained their focus, carefully guiding the nanomaterials as they interfaced with Victor and Zarovex. The process was delicate, unpredictable, a spontaneous hybridization unlike anything they had experienced before. Dr. Robertson approached cautiously, his scientific curiosity overriding his fear. Fascinating, he murmured, scanning the energy cocoon with his instruments. The nanomaterials are rewriting their genetic code in real time, but in a controlled manner. It's as if your combined will is directing the process. As the energy began to dissipate, Victor and Zarovex collapsed to the floor, their bodies transformed. Gone were the hateful expressions and violent intent. In their place was a look of wonder and confusion. Victor blinked, his eyes now shimmering with the telltale glow of hybridization. What have you done to us? He whispered, his voice trembling. Zarovex stared at her hands, watching as bioluminescent patterns danced across her skin. I can feel everything, she gasped. It's overwhelming. Tss. Peter knelt beside them, his expression a mixture of concern and hope. We've given you a chance to understand, to see the world as we do. As the implications of what had just occurred began to sink in, the lab fell into an uneasy silence. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but the consequences of this unexpected hybridization were yet to be fully understood. Colonel Hawkins stepped forward, his face grim. We need to secure the prisoners and assess the damage to the facility. Doctor, he turned to Robertson, I trust you can begin studying the effects of this spontaneous hybridization? Dr. Robertson nodded, already moving to gather his equipment. Of course, this is unprecedented. The data we gather could be invaluable. As the security team began to escort Victor and Zarovex to a containment area, Peter, Diana, and Lyrajan exchanged worried glances. They had defended the outpost and protected the research, but at what cost? The ethical implications of forced hybridization took a toll on their minds. Ambassador Reeves's voice came over the intercom, breaking the tense atmosphere. The immediate threat has been contained. All personnel report to your designated safe zones for a full headcount and damage assessment. As the adrenaline of the confrontation began to fade, Peter, Diana, and Lyrajan felt the full weight of their actions settle upon them. They had unlocked a new level of their abilities, working in perfect harmony to defend the outpost. But they had also irrevocably changed the lives of their attackers, blurring the lines between defense and violation of free will. The hybrid trio stood in the center of the lab, their bodies still glowing faintly with residual energy. The battle was over, but the true challenge, navigating the complex ethical and political landscape their actions had created, was just beginning. The ethical quandary took a toll on their minds as they contemplated the implications of their actions. Their moment of introspection was shattered by a piercing alarm. The lab's environmental systems blared a warning as a containment unit in the corner began to emit a high-pitched whine. Peter's eyes widened as he recognized the danger. The human Nectar samples, he shouted, racing towards the unit. But it was too late. A stray energy blast from the earlier firefight had compromised the containment field. As Peter reached out to stabilize it, the unit ruptured with a thunderous crack. A shimmering cloud of nanomaterial-infused mist exploded outward, engulfing everyone in the room. Diana instinctively threw up an energy barrier, but the mist seeped through, its particles too fine to be stopped. Lyra Jen gasped as she felt the familiar tingle of nanomaterials interacting with her body. "No!" Victor Helios cried out, his voice a mixture of fear and rage as the mist enveloped him and Zaravex. Their bodies began to glow, mirroring the bioluminescent patterns that now danced across the hybrid trio's skin. The room descended into chaos. The extremist leaders writhed on the floor, their bodies undergoing rapid changes. Zaravex's multifaceted eyes flickered, new colors bleeding into her irises. Victor's skin rippled as if alive, nanomaterials reshaping his very cellular structure. Dr. Robertson scrambled to his equipment, fingers flying over holographic displays. "This is unprecedented," he muttered, eyes wide as he analyzed the data streaming in. "The mist is initiating an uncontrolled hybridization process in everyone exposed." Peter, Diana, and Lyra Jen exchanged glances, their empathic link humming with shared concern and dedication. They moved in unison, channeling their combined abilities to create a stabilizing field around the room. "We need to contain this," Peter said, his voice strained with effort. "If the mist spreads beyond this lab—" Diana nodded, reaching out with her mind to the hybrid plants in the nearby agricultural dome. Vines snaked through the ventilation system, sealing off potential escape routes for the nanomaterial mist. Lyra Jen focused on the extremist leaders, using her newly acquired abilities to try and guide the chaotic hybridization process. "Their bodies are fighting the change," she reported, her multifaceted eyes scanning the molecular alterations. "If we don't stabilize them soon, the shock could kill them." As they worked to control the situation, Colonel Hawkins and his security team arrived at the lab's entrance. The colonel's eyes widened as he took in the scene through the observation window. "What in the name of Earth and Andromeda is going on in there?" he demanded over the comm system. Dr. Robertson, still furiously analyzing data, responded without looking up. "Colonel, we have a Level 1 containment breach. The human Nectar has been released, and we're dealing with an uncontrolled hybridization event." Hawkins swore under his breath. "I'm calling in a full lockdown. No one goes in or out until we understand the extent of this incident." As the security team secured the perimeter, Peter, Diana, and Lyra Jen continued their efforts to stabilize the room. The extremist group, seeing their leaders incapacitated and feeling the effects of the mist themselves, quickly surrendered to the inevitable. Hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. The hybrid trio worked tirelessly, using their abilities to guide the hybridization process in the affected individuals. Dr. Robertson and his team monitored vital signs and genetic markers, providing crucial data to help manage the transformation. Finally, as the last traces of the mist dissipated, an uneasy calm settled over the lab. Victor Helios and Zaravex lay unconscious but stable, their bodies now bearing the unmistakable signs of hybridization. The rest of the extremist group huddled in a corner, wide-eyed and silent as they grappled with their new reality. Peter slumped against a wall, exhaustion etched on his face. Diana joined him, intertwining her fingers with his in a gesture of comfort. Lyra Jen stood nearby, her multifaceted eyes scanning the room with a mixture of scientific curiosity and concern. "What have we done?" Diana whispered, her voice barely audible. Before anyone could respond, the lab's communication system crackled to life. Ambassador Reeves's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grave. "We've been monitoring the situation," he said, his eyes scanning the room. "I've declared a state of emergency for Xerxes 4. A joint human Andromedan task force is en route to assist with containment and study of this incident." Counselor Zena's face joined the ambassadors on the screen. "The implications of this event are far-reaching," she said, her tone measured but tinged with concern. "Both our governments are demanding a full investigation." As the gravity of the situation sank in, Peter straightened his shoulders and stepped forward. "Ambassador, Counselor," he said, his voice steady despite his fatigue, We stand ready to assist in any way we can. Our unique perspective as stable hybrids might prove valuable in managing this crisis. Reeves nodded, a flicker of relief crossing his face. We're counting on it, Peter. The task force will arrive within days. Until then, your priority is to stabilize the affected individuals and prevent any further spread of the nanomaterials. As the communication ended, Peter turned to face Diana and Lyra Jen. Their empathic link buzzed with a complex mix of emotions. Exhaustion, concern, but also a glimmer of hope. We've opened Pandora's box, Lyra Jen said softly, her gaze sweeping over the transformed extremists. Diana nodded, her expression thoughtful. Yes, but maybe in doing so, we've also opened a new chapter in human-Andromedan relations. Peter looked at his companions, then at Dr. Robertson and the recovering extremists. The air in the lab seemed charged with possibility and uncertainty in equal measure. Whatever comes next, Peter said, his voice low but determined, we'll face it together. As hybrids, as scientists, as pioneers on the frontier of a new era. As they prepared for the challenges ahead, none of them could have predicted how this incident would reshape not just Xerxes IV, but the entire landscape of interstellar cooperation and scientific exploration. The hybrid trio stood at the threshold of a new dawn, one that promised to redefine the very nature of humanity and Andromedan alike. The hybrid trio stood at the threshold of a new dawn, one that promised to redefine the very nature of humanity and Andromedan relations. As the immediate crisis subsided, the focus shifted to managing the aftermath of the uncontrolled hybridization event. Dr. Robertson wasted no time in establishing a dedicated medical facility within the outpost. The lab, once a scene of chaos, was quickly transformed into a hub of intense scientific activity. Beds lined the walls, each surrounded by an array of holographic displays monitoring the vital signs of the newly hybridized individuals. Peter, Diana, and Lyra Jen found themselves at the center of this new endeavor. Their unique status as stable hybrids made them invaluable to the treatment process. They moved from bed to bed, their bodies glowing faintly as they used their abilities to help stabilize the patients. Focus on the energy flowing through you, Peter instructed a former extremist, his voice calm and reassuring. Imagine it as a river. You're not trying to stop it, just guide its course. The man nodded, his face contorted in concentration. Slowly, the erratic pulses of energy emanating from his body began to smooth out, falling into a more regular rhythm. Diana worked with Zarovex, whose multifaceted eyes darted around the room in confusion and fear. It's overwhelming at first, Diana said, placing a comforting hand on Zarovex's arm. But you'll learn to filter the sensory input. Let me show you. Using her empathic abilities, Diana projected a sense of calm and focus. Zarovex's rapid breathing slowed, and her eyes gradually settled on Diana's face. Lyra Jen approached Victor Helios, who lay motionless on his bed, his skin rippling with bioluminescent patterns. She placed her hands on either side of his head, her own multifaceted eyes scanning the molecular changes occurring within his body. His hybridization is progressing rapidly, she reported to Dr. Robertson, who hurried over with a datapad. We need to stabilize his neural pathways before the nanomaterials alter them too drastically. As the trio worked tirelessly with the patients, the joint Human Andromedan Task Force arrived at the outpost. They moved swiftly, implementing new security measures throughout the facility. Advanced biometric scanners were installed at every doorway, their soft blue glow a constant reminder of the heightened alert status. Ambassador Reeves and Counselor Xena oversaw the operation from the command center. Holographic displays showed the progress of the security upgrades and the status of the hybridized individuals. The situation is stable for now, Reeves said, his voice tinged with both relief and concern. But we need to understand how this happened and prevent it from occurring again. Counselor Xena nodded, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the light of the displays. Agreed. I've dispatched our best investigators to trace the extremist group's movements. We must root out any remaining sympathizers within the outpost. As the days passed, a sense of routine began to emerge from the chaos. Peter, Diana, and Lyra Jen developed a series of exercises to help the new hybrids control their abilities. They set up a training area in one of the larger storage bays, clearing out equipment to create an open space. Today, we're going to work on energy manipulation, Peter announced to the group of nervous-looking hybrids gathered before him. Remember, the nanomaterials in your body respond to your will. Concentrate on forming a simple shape with your energy. He demonstrated creating a glowing sphere between his hands. The others watched in awe before attempting to replicate the feat. Some managed small, flickering orbs, while others produced wild, uncontrolled bursts of energy. Don't get discouraged, Diana encouraged, moving among the group to offer individual guidance. It takes time and practice to achieve fine control. As the hybrid trio focused on training, Dr. Robertson and his team made a breakthrough in stabilizing the effects of uncontrolled hybridization. They worked around the clock, analyzing data and running simulations, until they developed a modified version of the human Nectar. This new formula should allow for a gradual, controlled introduction of hybrid traits, Dr. Robertson explained to Ambassador Reeves and Counselor Xena. He held up a vial of shimmering liquid. We believe this could be the key to voluntary hybridization. The news spread quickly, sparking intense interest from both human and Andromedan societies. As reports of the breakthrough reached the wider galaxy, the outpost was flooded with messages from individuals eager to undergo the hybridization process. In response to this growing interest, Ambassador Reeves and Counselor Xena proposed the establishment of a hybrid integration program. They convened a meeting with Peter, Diana, and Lyra Jen to discuss the initiative. We need your expertise, Reeves said, looking at each of them in turn. You've lived this experience. You understand the challenges these new hybrids will face better than anyone. Lyra Jen nodded, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with excitement. We would be honored to help guide the next generation of hybrids. As preparations for the program began, the first group of volunteers arrived at the outpost. Among them was Dr. Marcus Reeves, the ambassador's son. He approached Peter with impossibly strong enthusiasm. I've been following your work for years, Marcus said, shaking Peter's hand vigorously. The potential applications for xenobiology are staggering. I can't wait to experience it firsthand. Peter smiled, recognizing the familiar gleam of scientific curiosity in Marcus's eyes. It's not an easy process, but I think you'll find it rewarding. Let's get you started with the initial screenings. As Marcus underwent the carefully controlled hybridization process, Peter, Diana, and Lyra Jen took turns monitoring his progress. They watched as subtle changes began to manifest. A faint glow beneath his skin, a sharpening of his senses. During one of Lyra Jen's monitoring sessions, Marcus experienced a sudden surge of nanomaterial activity. His body began to emit pulses of energy, interfering with the medical equipment surrounding him. Lyra Jen reacted instinctively, placing her hands on Marcus's shoulders. She closed her eyes, concentrating intensely as she channeled the excess energy through her own body. The room filled with a soft, pulsating light as the two connected on a molecular level. When it was over, Marcus opened his eyes, looking at Lyra Jen with a mixture of awe and gratitude. That was incredible, he whispered, his voice hoarse. Lyra Jen nodded, feeling a strange flutter in her chest. You did well, she said softly, her multifaceted eyes meeting his newly hybridized gaze. As news of Marcus's successful hybridization spread, more volunteers came forward. The outpost buzzed with activity as new hybrids began their training and researchers studied the long-term effects of the transformation. Weeks later, Peter, Diana, and Lyra Jen stood on the surface of the terraformed moon, overseeing a group training session for the new hybrids. The diverse group of humans and Andromedans moved through a series of exercises, their bodies glowing with controlled pulses of energy. Look at them, Diana said, a note of pride in her voice. They're adapting so quickly. Peter nodded, watching as Marcus helped another hybrid master a particularly tricky energy manipulation technique. We've come a long way, he mused, but this is just the beginning. Lyra Jen's gaze lingered on Marcus, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Indeed, she agreed. The real challenge lies ahead, integrating hybrid individuals into the broader galactic community. As the training session continued, the three hybrid pioneers stood side by side, watching the future unfold before their eyes. The terraformed moon's atmosphere shimmered with possibility, a testament to the potential of human Andromedan cooperation and the dawn of a new hybrid era. The tranquil scene on the terraformed moon was suddenly interrupted by the arrival of a sleek transport ship. As it touched down near the training area, Peter, Diana, and Lyragen exchanged curious glances. "We weren't expecting any visitors today," Peter said, his brow furrowing. The ship's hatch opened, revealing a familiar figure. Dr. Alara Voss, the renowned human xenobiologist, stepped out onto the moon's surface. Her eyes widened as she took in the sight of the hybrid training session. "Remarkable," she breathed, approaching the trio. "Your progress is even more impressive than I'd imagined." Diana smiled warmly. "Dr. Voss, it's good to see you. What brings you to Xerxes 4? The scientist's expression turned serious. "I'm afraid I come with urgent news. We need to speak with Ambassador Reeves and Counselor Xena immediately." Within the hour, they had assembled in the outpost's main conference room. Dr. Voss stood before a holographic display, her hands moving swiftly as she brought up images of a distant planet. "This is AX 789, she explained, her voice filled with hardly restrained excitement. "It orbits a binary star system in the Andromeda Galaxy, and I believe it houses another progenitor site." The room erupted in murmurs of surprise and speculation. Ambassador Reeves leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the swirling images of the planet's surface. "How certain are you of this, Dr. Voss?" he asked. "The evidence is compelling," she replied, zooming in on several areas of the planet. "These structures bear striking similarities to those found on XR27, and the energy signatures we've detected, they're unlike anything we've seen before." Counselor Xena's multifaceted eyes gleamed with interest. "This could be a significant breakthrough in our understanding of the progenitors and the hybridization process." Peter stepped closer to the hologram, studying the dense, bioluminescent forest that covered much of the planet's surface. "It looks like a challenging environment. We'd need specialized equipment to navigate and study it effectively." Dr. Robertson nodded, already pulling up schematics on his datapad. "We can modify our existing protective suits to interface with your hybrid physiology. It should enhance your ability to interact with and collect data from the environment." As the meeting progressed, a plan began to take shape. A small expedition team would be sent to AX 789 to investigate the potential progenitor site. Peter, Diana, and Lyragen were the obvious choices, given their experience with hybrid abilities and progenitor technology. "We should also include Dr. Marcus Reeves," Lyragen suggested, her gaze flicking briefly to the ambassador's son. "His recent hybridization and xenobiology expertise could prove invaluable." Ambassador Reeves nodded his approval, though concern flickered across his face. "Marcus, are you comfortable with this assignment? You're still adjusting to your new abilities." Marcus straightened, his eyes shining with purpose. "I'm ready, Father. This is the opportunity of a lifetime." Over the next few weeks, the expedition team underwent intensive training. They spent hours in simulated environments, pushing the limits of their hybrid abilities. Peter and Diana worked on creating protective energy fields, while Lyragen focused on fine-tuning her molecular manipulation skills. Marcus, still prone to occasional surges of nanomaterial activity, required extra attention. Lyragen took it upon herself to help him stabilize his condition, spending long hours guiding him through control exercises. During one particularly challenging session, Marcus's nanomaterials flared unexpectedly. Lyragen reacted instinctively, placing her hands on his shoulders and channeling the excess energy through her own body. The room filled with a soft, pulsating light as their energies intertwined. As the surge subsided, Marcus opened his eyes, finding himself mere inches from Lyragen's face. Time seemed to slow as they held each other's gaze, the air between them charged with more than just residual energy. "Thank you," Marcus whispered, his breath warm against her skin. Lyragen felt a flutter in her chest, a sensation both foreign and exhilarating. Without thinking, she closed the distance between them, their lips meeting in a kiss that sent shock waves through their hybrid bodies. The day of departure arrived all too quickly. The expedition team boarded the Nexus, a ship specially modified for their hybrid needs. As they strapped into their seats, Peter interfaced with the ship's systems, his body glowing softly as he ran through final checks. "All systems are go," he announced, his voice tinged with excitement and a hint of apprehension. Diana reached over, squeezing his hand. Together, we've got this. As the Nexus lifted off from Xerxes 4, the team felt a strange sensation wash over them. Their nanomaterial-infused bodies resonated with the ship's hybrid systems, creating an unexpected psychic link between all four members. Larajan gasped as the connection solidified. This is incredible. I can sense all of you. Marcus nodded, his eyes wide with wonder. It's like we're extensions of the ship itself. They utilized this newfound connection as they journeyed towards AX-78, sharing sensory information and coordinating their actions with unprecedented efficiency. The trip passed in a blur of shared experiences and discoveries. As they approached the binary star system, the team gathered around the ship's main viewport. The sight before them was breathtaking. Two massive stars, one burning bright blue, the other a deep red, orbiting each other in a cosmic dance. Peter's voice was filled with awe as he spoke. Look at the way the radiation from those stars interacts with the planet's atmosphere. It's creating some kind of energy field. Diana nodded, her hybrid senses picking up on the complex patterns. It's interfering with our standard sensors. We'll need to rely on our abilities to navigate once we enter the atmosphere. The descent to AX-789's surface was turbulent, but Peter and Diana's combined skills at the helm kept them steady. As they broke through the cloud cover, the true beauty of the planet revealed itself. The bioluminescent forest stretched as far as the eye could see, pulsing with waves of ethereal light. They touched down in a small clearing, the Nexus settling gently onto the alien soil. For a moment, the team sat in silence, taking in the view through the ship's windows. Marcus was the first to move, practically bouncing with excitement as he began final equipment checks. I can't wait to get out there and start collecting samples. The potential for new discoveries is astronomical. As they donned their protective suits and prepared to disembark, Lyra Jen paused, her multifaceted eyes scanning the tree line. There's something out there, she said softly. I can sense movement. Peter nodded, his own hybrid senses on high alert. Stay close. We don't know what kind of life forms we might encounter here. The hatch opened with a hiss, and the team stepped out onto the surface of AX-789. The air was thick with humidity and filled with the soft hum of alien life. As they moved away from the ship, the bioluminescent plants seemed to respond to their presence, the waves of light intensifying and shifting in mesmerizing patterns. Lyra Jun raised her hands, creating a protective energy field around the group. As she did so, the nearby plants reacted, their light pulsing in sync with her energy. Fascinating, Marcus murmured, kneeling to examine a fern-like plant. It's as if the entire ecosystem is connected somehow. Diana pointed towards a rocky outcropping in the distance. I'm picking up faint energy signatures from that direction. It could be the progenitor site. As they made their way through the dense undergrowth, Peter suddenly held up a hand, signaling the group to stop. We're not alone, he whispered. From the shadows of the luminous forest, strange creatures began to emerge. Their bodies were a seamless blend of plant and animal characteristics, glowing with the same bioluminescent light as their surroundings. They moved with fluid grace, regarding the expedition team with what seemed like curiosity. The hybrid team stood frozen, unsure whether to retreat or attempt communication. As one of the creatures took a step forward, its body rippling with waves of light, they realized that their mission to AX-789 was about to become far more complex than they had ever imagined. Anticipated. The creature at the forefront, its body a swirling mass of bioluminescent tendrils, extended a limb towards Marcus. Marcus instinctively stepped back, but Lyra Jen placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Wait, she whispered. I don't sense any hostility. The creature's appendage touched Marcus's protective suit, and a surge of energy pulsed through the material. The hybrid team gasped in unison as their suits began to glow, interfacing with the alien biology around them. Incredible, Diana breathed. It's as if they're welcoming us. Peter nodded, his eyes scanning the area. These beings might be the key to finding the progenitor site. We should follow their lead. The luminous creatures formed a path through the dense foliage, guiding the team deeper into the forest. As they walked, the plants seemed to part before them, revealing a hidden entrance to an underground complex. "This must be it," Marcus said, excitement evident in his voice. The progenitor site Dr. Voss detected. The team activated their specialized protective suits as they entered the complex. The walls pulsed with a faint bioluminescence, responding to their presence. Peter and Diana took the lead, their enhanced senses guiding them through the dimly lit corridors. As they ventured deeper, the passageways opened into a vast chamber filled with crystalline structures. At the center stood a massive, pulsating crystal that emitted waves of energy. The team felt the energy interacting with their hybrid physiology, causing a tingling sensation throughout their bodies. Marcus immediately began taking readings of the energy patterns. "These signatures are unlike anything we've seen before. The crystal seems to be a power source of some kind." Lyra Zhen created a protective field around the group, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I can feel the energy trying to interact with our nanomaterials. We should be cautious." As the team examined the central crystal, a sudden burst of light filled the chamber. Holographic barriers sprang up, separating the team members. Peter and Diana found themselves isolated in one section, while Marcus and Lyra Zhen were trapped in another. "Peter," Diana called out, her hand pressing against the shimmering barrier. "Can you hear me?" Peter nodded, his voice slightly muffled by the energy field. "We're okay. It seems to be some kind of security system. We need to find a way to deactivate it." In their isolated section, Peter and Diana discovered a control panel that seemed to respond to their hybrid abilities. By synchronizing their nanomaterial-infused bodies with the ancient technology, they began to unlock the secrets of the progenitor site. "Diana, look at this," Peter said, his eyes wide as information flooded his mind. This place was a biological research station. The progenitors were conducting experiments on combining different species. Meanwhile, Marcus and Lyra Zhen found themselves in a section filled with stasis pods. Each pod contained a hybrid creature, combining traits from various alien species. Some of the pods showed signs of activity, their inhabitants seemingly suspended in time. As they studied the pods, Marcus felt a surge of energy course through his body. He turned to find Lyra Zhen standing close, her multifaceted eyes fixed on him. The charged atmosphere of the ancient lab seemed to intensify the connection between them. "Lyra," Marcus said softly, reaching out to steady himself against a nearby console. "Are you feeling this too?" She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Our hybrid physiologies are resonating with the energy in this place. It's overwhelming." Before they could explore their growing feelings further, the holographic barriers suddenly disappeared. Peter and Diana rushed to join them, their faces flushed with excitement. "We've managed to deactivate the security systems," Diana explained, "and we've learned so much about this place. The progenitors were far more advanced than we ever imagined." The reunited team shared their discoveries, piecing together the purpose of the complex. As they continued their exploration, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber containing an advanced terraforming device. Marcus's eyes lit up as he examined the machine. "This technology is incredible. It appears capable of rapidly altering planetary environments on a massive scale. We could use this to create habitable worlds for hybrid beings." As the team gathered around the device, Marcus accidentally brushed against a control panel. The machine hummed to life, drawing energy from the central crystal and the surrounding bioluminescent forest. The complex began to shake as the device powered up, its influence already reaching beyond the underground chamber. The team realized with growing alarm that they had inadvertently activated a process that could irreversibly change AX-789's ecosystem. "We need to shut it down," Peter shouted over the increasing noise. "Diana, help me interface with the control systems. Marcus, Lyra Zhen, see if you can stabilize the energy flow from the central crystal." As they worked frantically to contain the machine's power, the hybrid creatures from the forest began to enter the complex. Some seemed drawn by the surge of energy, while others appeared agitated by the disturbance. Peter and Diana focused on communicating with the creatures, using their hybrid abilities to convey the urgency of the situation. Some of the beings began to assist, their bioluminescent bodies pulsing in sync with the team's efforts to stabilize the energy fluctuations. The crisis reached its peak as the terraforming device threatened to overload. The team's hybrid physiologies evolved further in response to the intense energy fields, their nanomaterial-infused bodies adapting to channel and control the massive energies coursing through the complex. Working in perfect synchronization, the team managed to interface directly with the ancient technology. Their combined efforts finally succeeded in powering down the terraforming device, preventing a catastrophic change to AX-789's ecosystem. As the energy levels in the complex gradually returned to normal, the team took a moment to catch their breath. The adrenaline of the crisis slowly faded, replaced by a growing sense of wonder at what they had discovered and experienced. Marcus began gathering samples from the stasis pods, his hands steady despite the lingering excitement. The data we've collected here will revolutionize our understanding of hybrid biology and progenitor technology. Larijan nodded, her eyes scanning the chamber. We should prepare to return to the Nexus and transmit our findings back to Xerxes IV. The implications of this discovery are far-reaching. As the team made their way back toward the surface, they noticed subtle changes in the complex around them. The bioluminescent walls pulsed with new patterns, and the air seemed charged with a different kind of energy. Emerging from the underground structure, they were met with a breathtaking sight. The forest had transformed, its bioluminescence now exhibiting properties similar to their own hybrid physiology. The plants swayed with increased responsiveness, and the hybrid creatures that had followed them displayed a range of new abilities. Peter's voice was filled with awe as he surveyed the changed landscape. It seems our actions have triggered a new phase of evolution on X-789. The repercussions of our mission here will be felt for years to come. As the team prepared to return to the Nexus, they knew that their discoveries on AX-789 would shape the future of human-Andromedan relations and hybrid research. The pulsing, ever-changing forest around them stood as a testament to the incredible potential and responsibilities that came with their newfound knowledge. With a mix of excitement and trepidation, they began the journey back to their ship, their minds already racing with the possibilities that lay ahead. The transformed landscape of X-789 glowed behind them, a vivid reminder of the profound changes they had set in motion. As they approached the Nexus, the team's excitement was palpable. Peter initiated contact with the Xerxes IV outpost, his fingers dancing across the communication panel. Xerxes IV, this is Expedition Team Alpha. We have urgent findings to report from AX-789. The response was immediate. Team Alpha, this is Xerxes IV. We're standing by to receive your transmission. As the data began to flow, the team could hear gasps and exclamations of awe from the other end of the line. The scientific community on Xerxes IV erupted into a flurry of activity, analyzing the information streaming in from X-789. This is extraordinary, came the voice of Dr. Ilara Voss, her tone filled with wonder. We're dispatching a research fleet immediately. Maintain your position and continue your observations. Over the next few days, the hybrid team ventured back into the transformed bioluminescent forests surrounding their landing site. The landscape had changed dramatically since their initial arrival, with new patterns of light pulsing through the vegetation. Diana knelt beside a cluster of fern-like plants, her eyes widening as she observed their behavior. Look at this, she called to the others. The plants are responding to our presence. It's as if they're trying to communicate. Marcus joined her, his scanner humming as he analyzed the bioluminescent pulses. You're right. These energy patterns are far too complex to be random. They're definitely attempting some form of interaction. As they delved deeper into the forest, they encountered a group of the evolved hybrid creatures they had seen earlier. These beings, now displaying a level of intelligence that surpassed their previous encounters, approached the team with clear intent. Peter stepped forward, his hybrid senses on high alert. He felt a gentle probing at the edges of his consciousness, a tentative attempt at contact. Diana moved to stand beside him, her own mind opening to the alien presence. They're telepathic, she whispered, her voice filled with awe. They're trying to communicate with us. Through their combined efforts, Peter and Diana established a rudimentary form of mental communication with the creatures. Images and emotions flowed between them, conveying concepts that transcended language. "They call themselves the Luminari," Peter said, his voice hushed with reverence. "They want to show us something." The Luminari led the team through winding paths of glowing vegetation, deeper into the heart of the forest. They arrived at a hidden grove, where the air itself seemed to shimmer with energy. At the center of the clearing stood a pulsating mound of crystalline material. Lara Jean's multifaceted eyes widened as she approached the deposit. "This energy signature, it's similar to our nanomaterials. Could this be—" Marcus rushed forward, his scanner whirring as he analyzed the substance. "It is. This is a naturally occurring form of the human nectar nanomaterials. The implications are staggering." As Marcus collected samples, Lara Jean used her abilities to probe the energy patterns emanating from the deposit. The team noticed subtle changes in their own bodies as they worked, their hybrid physiologies adapting to the unique environment of X789 at an accelerated rate. Peter felt a new awareness blooming within him, an enhanced connection to the bioluminescent ecosystem surrounding them. He could sense the ebb and flow of energy through the plants and creatures, a living network of light and information. Their exploration was interrupted by the arrival of the research fleet. Ships from both human and Andromedan worlds descended through the planet's atmosphere, their hulls gleaming in the ethereal light of the forest. As the new arrivals set up a research outpost on the planet's surface, Peter and his team briefed them on their discoveries and the potential dangers of the rapidly evolving ecosystem. "The entire planet is in a state of accelerated evolution," Peter explained to a group of wide-eyed scientists. "We need to proceed with caution. The slightest disruption could have unforeseen consequences." With the outpost established, the team split up to pursue different avenues of research. Peter and Diana led expeditions into the deeper regions of the bioluminescent forest, discovering vast networks of underground caverns filled with crystalline structures that seemed to amplify the planet's energy fields. Meanwhile, Marcus and Lara Jean focused on studying the raw nanomaterial deposit. Their work led to a breakthrough in synthesizing a more stable version of the human nectar, opening up new possibilities for controlled hybridization. As the days passed, the team noticed the increased activity on X789 was having an unexpected effect on the planet's hybrid ecosystem. New species of plants and animals emerged at an alarming rate, each more adapted to interface with the planet's unique energy fields. Concerned about the rapid changes, Peter called a meeting with the research team leaders. "We need to find a way to stabilize the planet's systems," he said, his voice urgent. "I propose we reactivate parts of the progenitor complex. It might give us better control over the situation." The decision was made, and Peter led a group of hybrid volunteers back into the underground facility. As they worked to bring the ancient technology online, Diana interfaced with the progenitor systems, uncovering more information about AX789's original purpose. "It seems the progenitors intended this world to be a testing ground for their hybridization experiments," she reported, her voice filled with awe. "They were working towards something big." The activation of the progenitor systems had an immediate effect, slowing the rate of evolution to more manageable levels. However, it also triggered something unexpected. Holographic projections of progenitor beings flickered into existence throughout the facility and the surrounding forest. A resonant voice filled the air, speaking in a language that seemed to bypass their ears and go straight to their minds. "Evaluation protocol initiated, assessing viability of hybrid species." Before the team could react, a massive energy surge erupted from the planet's core. All technology on AX789 went dark, including the protective suits worn by non-hybrid members of the expedition. In the ensuing chaos, Peter heard cries of alarm as several researchers found themselves exposed to the planet's hybrid atmosphere and nanomaterials. He saw Marcus and Lara Jean running towards a group of affected scientists, their bodies already beginning to change. "We need to stabilize them," Marcus shouted, his hands glowing with energy as he attempted to slow the transformation process. Peter turned to Diana, his mind racing. "We have to find a way to control this and address the progenitor protocol. The fate of everything we've worked for hangs in the balance. As alarms blared and the forest pulsed with newfound energy, the team raced against time to contain the situation. The evolving world of AX-789 had thrown them yet another challenge, one that would test the limits of their hybrid abilities and their understanding of the progenitor's grand design. As the team raced to address the multiple crises unfolding across the research outpost, Peter's mind whirled with the enormity of the situation. "Diana, we need to stabilize the exposed researchers," he called out, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Let's use our hybrid abilities to create protective fields around them." Diana nodded, her eyes glowing with drive as she focused her energy. Together they moved swiftly through the outpost, identifying non-hybrid researchers who had been exposed to the planet's hybrid atmosphere and nanomaterials. Peter approached a group of scientists huddled near a malfunctioning airlock. He raised his hands, concentrating on forming a protective energy barrier around them. The air shimmered as the field took shape, enveloping the researchers in a soft, pulsating glow. "Stay calm," he instructed, his voice soothing yet authoritative. "We're taking you to the medical facility. The energy field will protect you from further exposure." As Peter and Diana guided the affected researchers to safety, Lyra, Jen, and Marcus tackled the outpost's compromised defensive systems. They raced through corridors lined with flickering panels and sparking wires, their hybrid physiologies allowing them to navigate the hazardous environment with ease. Marcus placed his hand on a damage control panel, closing his eyes as he interfaced with the system. His fingers moved in intricate patterns, bypassing malfunctioning circuits and rerouting power. Lyra Jen stood beside him, her multifaceted eyes scanning the surrounding area for potential threats. "The primary defense grid is back online," Marcus announced, his voice tinged with relief. "But these systems are evolving rapidly. Our own hybrid abilities seem to be adapting in response." Lyra Jen nodded, flexing her fingers as she felt a new surge of energy coursing through her body. "We should use this to our advantage. Let's see if we can enhance the outpost's energy shields." As the immediate dangers were brought under control, the team regrouped in the central chamber of the progenitor complex. The holographic projections of the ancient beings continued to flicker around them, observing their every move with unblinking eyes. Peter stepped forward, his mind reaching out to the luminari who had joined them. "We need to communicate with the progenitor holograms," he said, his thoughts transmitting clearly to the hybrid beings. "Show them our progress, our unity." Diana joined him, her consciousness merging with his as they opened their minds to the ancient presence. Images flowed between them, scenes of human and Andromedan cooperation, the birth of the first hybrids, the peaceful integration of their cultures. The holograms pulsed in response, their forms shifting and reconfiguring. Suddenly, the air around the team shimmered, and they found themselves transported to a series of virtual environments. "It's some kind of test," Diana realized, her voice echoing strangely in the simulated space. The challenges came in rapid succession. Peter found himself manipulating complex energy fields, his hybrid abilities pushed to their limits as he struggled to maintain stability in a rapidly changing environment. Diana interfaced with a network of progenitor devices, her mind racing to decipher alien algorithms and redirect massive data flows. As the tests progressed, Lyra Jen and Marcus discovered a hidden chamber within the complex. The room hummed with energy, centered around a device that dwarfed the terraforming technology they had encountered earlier. "This could be the key to stabilizing the entire planet," Marcus breathed, his hands hovering over the device's intricate controls. Lyra Jen joined him, her hybrid senses attuned to the energy flowing through the machine. "We need to understand its full capabilities. This could change everything." While they worked to decipher the advanced terraforming device, Peter and Diana continued guiding the hybrid team through the progenitor tests. The challenges grew increasingly difficult, forcing them to adapt and evolve their abilities on the fly. In the medical facility, the exposed researchers underwent rapid changes. Some developed bioluminescent patches on their skin, while others exhibited enhanced sensory perception. Peter and Diana split their attention between the ongoing tests and monitoring the newly hybridizing individuals. "How are you feeling?" Peter asked one of the affected scientists, a young woman whose eyes now glowed with an inner light. "It's overwhelming," she replied, her voice wavering, "but also exhilarating. I can sense the energy fields around us now." As the evaluation protocol reached its final stages, the progenitor holograms converged in the central chamber. The air shimmered, and a vast star map materialized before the team. Peter's eyes widened as he recognized the implications. "These are other progenitor research sites," he said, his voice filled with awe, each one dedicated to different aspects of hybridization and advancement. The team quickly documented the star map, transmitting the data to both human and Andromedan authorities. As they worked, the progenitor holograms delivered their final assessment. A resonant voice filled the chamber. "Access granted. The hybrid inhabitants of AX-789 have demonstrated sufficient advancement." With those words, new sections of the underground complex began to activate. Walls shifted, revealing chambers filled with biotechnology beyond their wildest imaginations. Energy manipulation devices hummed to life, offering untold possibilities for research and development. Above ground, the bioluminescent forest responded to the activation. Complex patterns of light danced through the vegetation, and some plants began to form structures resembling organic computing nodes. The luminari, ever adaptable, grew more intelligent and communicative by the hour. In the newly discovered chamber, Lyragen and Marcus made a breakthrough with the advanced terraforming device. As they interfaced with the machine, understanding flooded their hybrid minds. "This device," Marcus said, his voice filled with excitement, "it can create stable, customized environments for various hybrid species. Do you realize what this means?" Lyragen nodded, her eyes gleaming. "We could establish a permanent hybrid colony here on X789, a self-sustaining ecosystem that combines the best of human, Andromedan, and luminary biology." As the team began formulating plans for the hybrid colony, Peter and Diana focused on integrating the newly hybridized researchers into the expedition. They developed training programs, helping the individuals adapt to their new abilities and the unique environment of X789. During a break in the training sessions, Peter found Diana standing alone, gazing out at the transformed landscape. He approached her, feeling the familiar pull of their shared experiences. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" he said softly, standing beside her. Diana turned to him, a smile playing on her lips. "It's more than that. It's the future, our future." As they stood together, watching the bioluminescent forest pulse with new life, a message came through their communication devices. A joint human-Andromedan diplomatic delegation was entering orbit, sent to assess the situation on X789 and discuss the implications of their discoveries. Peter took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "Well," he said, a hint of excitement in his voice, "I suppose it's time to show them what we found." As the delegation ship began its descent, the hybrid team gathered their findings and prepared to present their vision for the future of X789. The implications of their discoveries stretched far beyond this single planet, promising to reshape the future of intergalactic hybridization efforts. The air crackled with anticipation as the team made their final preparations. The bioluminescent forest seemed to sense the importance of the moment, its patterns shifting in complex, mesmerizing ways. As the diplomatic ship touched down on the outpost landing pad, Peter and Diana watched as the diplomatic ship touched down, its sleek form gleaming in the bioluminescent light of the forest. The hybrid team exchanged glances, a mix of excitement and apprehension evident in their eyes. "This is it," Peter said, his voice low. "Everything we've worked for comes down to this meeting." Diana nodded, her hybrid senses attuned to the subtle shifts in the air around them. "Let's show them what we've accomplished here." As the ship's hatch opened, human ambassador Jared Hawthorne and Andromedan High Counselor Zinvora emerged, their expressions a blend of curiosity and caution. Peter stepped forward to greet them, extending his hand in the human fashion, while inclining his head in the Andromedan gesture of respect. "Welcome to AX-789, he said, his voice clear and steady. "We're honored by your presence." Ambassador Hawthorne shook Peter's hand firmly. "The honor is ours, Dr. Chen. Your team's discoveries have sent shock waves through both our societies." Counselor Zinvora's multifaceted eyes scanned the surroundings, taking in the pulsing patterns of the bioluminescent forest. Truly remarkable, she said, her voice a melodic hum. We are eager to see more. The tour began immediately, with Peter and Diana leading the delegation through the transformed landscape. They paused at the edge of a clearing where a group of newly hybridized researchers had gathered to demonstrate their abilities. Dr. Ilara Voss, a former xenobiologist whose skin now shimmered with bioluminescent patches, stepped forward. She raised her hands and the air around her began to ripple with visible energy waves. As you can see, she explained, her voice tinged with awe at her own abilities, we can now manipulate the planet's energy fields directly. This has implications for everything from communication to power generation. Ambassador Hawthorne leaned in, his eyes wide. Incredible. And this is a result of controlled exposure to the planet's hybrid atmosphere? Peter nodded. Yes, but it's more than that. The progenitor technology seems to have unlocked latent potential within our DNA. We're still learning the full extent of these changes. As they moved deeper into the forest, Lyragen and Marcus joined the group, leading them towards the progenitor complex. The diplomatic team marveled at the ancient structures, their surfaces now alive with pulsing light and organic interfaces. Inside the complex, Marcus guided them to the chamber housing the advanced terraforming device. He placed his hand on the control panel, and holographic displays sprang to life around them. This technology, he explained, his voice filled with almost unchecked excitement, allows us to create customized environments for various hybrid species. We believe it could be the key to establishing a permanent colony here on AX-789. Counselor Zinvora stepped closer to the device, her antennae quivering with interest. A self-sustaining hybrid ecosystem? The implications are staggering. Lyragen nodded, her hybrid eyes gleaming. We've prepared a detailed proposal for the colony. It includes plans for integrating human, Andromedan, and luminary biology into a cohesive society. As Marcus and Lyragen delved into the technical aspects of their plan, Peter and Diana led a smaller group to the newly established training facilities. They watched as a group of hybrid individuals practiced manipulating energy fields, their movements fluid and controlled. Our training programs are designed to help newly hybridized individuals adapt to their abilities, Diana explained. We focus on both physical control and psychological integration. Ambassador Hawthorne observed the training session with keen interest. How do you address the ethical concerns of such rapid physiological changes? Peter met the ambassador's gaze steadily. We've implemented strict protocols for informed consent and continuous monitoring. Our goal is to ensure that hybridization enhances life rather than complicating it. As the tour continued, the group ventured into a previously unexplored section of the forest. The vegetation here seemed more vibrant, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. Suddenly, Counselor Zinvora's antennae twitched, and she pointed to a partially concealed structure. There, she said, her voice hushed. Do you see it? The group approached cautiously, and as they drew closer, the structure revealed itself to be another progenitor outpost. Unlike the main complex, this one hummed with active energy, its systems fully operational. Peter placed his hand on the entrance panel, and it slid open smoothly. Inside, they found a facility filled with advanced medical equipment, all designed specifically for hybrid physiology. This changes everything, Diana breathed, her eyes wide as she took in the array of unfamiliar devices. With this technology, we could revolutionize hybrid healthcare. As the diplomatic team explored the new facility, discussions broke out about the potential for establishing AX-789 as a hub for hybrid medical research and treatment. The excitement in the air was palpable, with both human and Andromedan representatives recognizing the enormous potential of their discoveries. As the day drew to a close, the delegation gathered in the central chamber of the main progenitor complex. Ambassador Hawthorne stepped forward, his expression serious but hopeful. What we've seen here today goes beyond our wildest expectations, he began. In light of these discoveries, we have several proposals to put forward. Counselor Zinvora joined him, her antennae quivering with anticipation. These proposals will shape the future of not only HFY, but our broader approach to hybridization and intergalactic cooperation. Peter, Diana, Lyra-Jen, and Marcus listened intently as the diplomatic team outlined their vision for the future. The proposals ranged from establishing HFY as an autonomous hybrid colony to creating an interstellar research network focused on progenitor technology. As the presentation concluded, Peter looked around at his team, seeing the mix of excitement and drive in their eyes. They all understood that this moment marked the beginning of a new chapter in their journey, one that would have far-reaching consequences for both human and Andromedan societies. With the diplomatic team's departure imminent, the hybrid team gathered to begin formulating implementation plans for the proposed initiatives. The air buzzed with energy as they discussed the logistics of expanding the HFY colony and integrating the Luminari into their new societal structure. Peter turned to Diana, a smile playing on his lips. Ready to shape the future of intergalactic relations? Diana's eyes gleamed with willpower. Let's get to work. Diana's eyes gleamed with willpower. Let's get to work. As the weeks passed, the team's vision for HFY began to take shape. The construction of the first large-scale hybrid habitation dome dominated the skyline, its translucent surface shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. Peter and Diana found themselves at the heart of a bustling hive of activity, coordinating efforts to integrate the various hybrid populations into a cohesive society. We need to establish a governing body, Peter said, poring over holographic schematics of the new colony. Something that represents all our diverse groups. Diana nodded, her hybrid senses picking up the subtle energy fluctuations in the air. A council, she suggested, with representatives from human, Andromedan, and luminary hybrids. They set to work, reaching out to community leaders and organizing elections. Within days, the first hybrid council convened in a newly constructed chamber at the heart of the dome. The air hummed with anticipation as representatives from each group took their seats. Lyra-Jen, now serving as the Andromedan hybrid representative, stood to address the council. Our first priority must be to address the challenges posed by our rapidly evolving ecosystem. As if on cue, a junior researcher burst into the chamber, his eyes wide with excitement. Dr. Chen, Dr. Navarro, you need to see this. The council members followed the researcher to a nearby laboratory where Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a newly hybridized xenobiologist, stood over a glowing sample tray. We've discovered a new species of bioluminescent fungi, she explained, her voice tight with controlled excitement. It's spreading through the forest at an unprecedented rate. Peter leaned in, examining the pulsing blue-green specimen. What are its effects? Dr. Rodriguez's eyes gleamed. That's the fascinating part. The spores seem to interact with our hybrid physiology, enhancing sensory perception and improving energy manipulation abilities. The implications were staggering. Diana turned to Peter, her mind racing. We need to study this further. The potential benefits could be enormous, but we can't ignore the risks. Dr. Rodriguez nodded. I've already assembled a research team. We'll be collecting samples from across the planet and establishing controlled growth environments within our facilities. As the xenobiology team set to work, Marcus and Lyra-Jen focused their efforts on adapting the progenitor terraforming device. They worked tirelessly, pushing the boundaries of their hybrid intellects to unlock the secrets of the ancient technology. Weeks of intense research culminated in a breakthrough. Marcus stood before the hybrid council, barely containing his excitement. We've done it, he announced. We've created a prototype of a mobile terraforming unit. Lyra-Jen stepped forward, activating a holographic display. This device can transform small areas of inhospitable terrain into habitable zones suitable for hybrid life. We've already conducted initial tests on a nearby barren moon. The council chamber erupted in a flurry of questions and exclamations. Peter raised his hands, calling for order. This is an incredible achievement, he said, but we need to consider the implications carefully. His words proved prophetic. Within days of the announcement, a sleek military vessel entered orbit around HFY. Admiral Jonathan Reeves, a high-ranking official in the human space fleet, requested permission to land and assess the new technology. Tension rippled through the colony as the Admiral's shuttle touched down. Peter and Diana met him at the landing pad, their expressions carefully neutral. "Welcome to AX-789, Admiral," Peter said, extending his hand. Admiral Reeves shook it firmly, his eyes scanning the hybrid structures around them. "Impressive work, Dr. Chen. I'm eager to see this terraforming device of yours." As they led the Admiral on a tour of the facilities, Diana sensed the unease among the colonists. Whispers of concern about military applications and the potential weaponization of their research spread like wildfire. To ease the rising tensions, Peter and Diana organized a series of cultural exchange events. The central plaza of the Habitation Dome was transformed into a vibrant marketplace of ideas and traditions. Human, Andromedan, and Luminary hybrid artisans showcased their crafts, while musicians filled the air with a fusion of interstellar melodies. As the colony continued to grow, new challenges emerged. The rapid expansion strained the planet's resources, pushing the hybrid engineers to develop more efficient energy and food production systems. Dr. Marcus Reeves, leading a team of hybrid researchers, made a startling discovery during this period of intense development. He burst into Peter's office, his eyes wild with excitement. "We've found something incredible," he said, barely pausing for breath. "The human Nectar nanomaterials, they have a previously unknown property. They can transfer memories and experiences between individuals." Peter sat back, stunned. "Are you certain?" Marcus nodded emphatically. "We've run multiple trials. The implications are, well, they're beyond anything we've encountered so far." As word of the discovery spread, debates erupted throughout the colony. The potential applications were tantalizing, but the ethical concerns were equally significant. Diana, recognizing the need for careful consideration of these new technologies, proposed the formation of an ethics committee. "We need guidelines," she argued before the Hybrid Council. "We must ensure that our scientific advancements don't compromise individual rights and well-being." The council agreed, appointing Diana as chair of the newly formed ethics committee. As she assembled her team, drawing from all hybrid groups, a new crisis loomed on the horizon. Lyra Zhen approached Peter, her expression grave. "Our energy demands are increasing exponentially," she said. "The planet's natural systems are struggling to keep up." She activated a holographic display, showing a complex network of energy flows. "I have a proposal," she continued. "We could harness the energy of AX-789's binary star system using advanced progenitor technology." Peter studied the display, his mind racing. "The potential is enormous," he said slowly, "but so are the risks. We'll need to present this to the council." As the Hybrid Council convened to discuss Lyra Zhen's bold proposal, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Representatives from each group voiced their opinions, weighing the benefits against the potential dangers to their delicate ecosystem. Suddenly, a violent tremor shook the council chamber. Alarms blared as the hybrid inhabitants instinctively reached out with their enhanced senses, trying to understand the disturbance. "Seismic activity," one of the luminary hybrids announced, her bioluminescent patches pulsing with agitation. It's coming from deep within the planet's core." Peter exchanged a worried glance with Diana. "Could this be related to the changes in our hybrid ecosystem?" he asked. Before anyone could respond, another tremor rocked the chamber. The council members steadied themselves, their expressions a mix of fear and persistence. "We need to act quickly," Peter announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Assemble our best scientists and engineers. We need to understand what's happening and find a way to stabilize the planet's core before—" His words were cut off by another, more powerful quake. As the hybrid colonists rushed to respond to this new threat, the future of AX-789 hung in the balance. The team knew that their next actions would determine not just the fate of their colony, but potentially the course of hybrid civilization itself. As the tremors intensified, Peter's voice cut through the chaos, galvanizing the council into action. "We need to act quickly, assemble our best scientists and engineers. We need to understand what's happening and find a way to stabilize the planet's core before—" Another violent quake interrupted him, sending ripples of fear through the assembled hybrids. Diana, her hybrid senses on high alert, reached out to steady herself against a nearby console. She locked eyes with Peter, a silent understanding passing between them. "I'll gather the emergency response team," she said, her voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. "We'll need Dr. Rodriguez and her expertise in xenobiology." Peter nodded, already tapping commands into his communicator. "I'll contact Lyragen and Marcus. Their knowledge of progenitor technology might be crucial." Within minutes, a team of geologists, energy specialists, and Dr. Elena Rodriguez herself had assembled in the council chamber. The air crackled with tension as they huddled around a holographic display of AX-789's internal structure. Dr. Rodriguez, her newly hybridized eyes glowing faintly in the dim light, pointed to a pulsing area deep within the planet's core. "The seismic activity seems to be originating from here," she explained, her voice tight with concentration. "It's like nothing I've ever seen before." One of the geologists, a human Andromedan hybrid named Kira, leaned in closer. "The energy readings are off the charts. It's as if the core is evolving." Peter frowned, his mind racing. Could this be related to the changes in our hybrid ecosystem? The rapid growth of the bioluminescent fungi? The alterations to the planet's biosphere? Dr. Rodriguez nodded slowly. "It's possible. Our presence here, the introduction of hybrid life forms, we've been changing this planet faster than we realized." As they discussed potential causes, Lyragen and Marcus burst into the room, their faces flushed with excitement despite the gravity of the situation. "Peter, Diana," Lyragen called out, her antenna quivering. "We might have a solution?" Marcus activated a portable holo projector, displaying a complex network of energy conduits. "Remember our proposal for harnessing the binary star system's energy? We believe we can modify that design to address this crisis." The room fell silent as Marcus explained their plan. By adapting their original stellar energy project, they could create a planetary stabilization system, a network of energy conduits that would safely channel the excess energy from the planet's core into the proposed stellar collection array. "It's ambitious," Peter said, studying the schematics, "but it might be our only chance to prevent a catastrophic destabilization of X-789. Diana nodded, her expression resolute. "We need to move fast. How quickly can we implement this system?" Lyragen and Marcus exchanged glances. "With round-the-clock work and all available resources, we might be able to have the first components deployed within 48 hours. Lyragen said. As the team set to work, Peter and Diana coordinated the colony's response to the escalating crisis. They established emergency protocols, assigned teams to monitor the seismic activity, and prepared evacuation plans should the worst occur. Days passed in a blur of frantic activity. The hybrid engineers worked tirelessly, their efforts spurred on by the constant tremors that shook the colony. As the first components of the stabilization system were deployed, a new challenge emerged. Dr. Rodriguez burst into the command center, her eyes wide with alarm. "The energy buildup in the planet's core," she gasped, catching her breath. "It's affecting the bioluminescent fungi we've been studying. The spores, they're mutating, spreading at an unprecedented rate." Peter and Diana exchanged worried glances. "What are the effects?" Diana asked, dreading the answer. "Enhanced energy manipulation abilities among the colonists," Dr. Rodriguez explained, "but also increased aggression, difficulty controlling emotions. If we don't contain this, we could be facing a breakdown of social order on top of everything else." Without hesitation, Peter activated the colony-wide communication system. "Attention all colonists," his voice rang out, steady and authoritative. "We are implementing immediate quarantine protocols. Please remain in your designated living areas and await further instructions. Emergency response teams will be distributing protective gear shortly." As the colonists complied with the new restrictions, tension began to build. Reports of arguments and minor scuffles trickled in from various sectors of the colony. Diana coordinated with the newly formed ethics committee to address concerns about civil liberties and the potential long-term effects of the mutated spores. Amidst the growing chaos, Admiral Reeves' voice crackled over the communication system. "Dr. Chen, Dr. Navarro," he said, his tone carefully neutral. "I've been monitoring the situation. I'm prepared to offer military assistance to maintain order and protect critical infrastructure. Peter hesitated, knowing that accepting such help could be seen as a betrayal by many of the colonists who feared military intervention. He glanced at Diana, seeing his own uncertainty mirrored in her eyes. "Thank you, Admiral," Peter replied carefully. "We appreciate the offer. Allow us to consult with the Hybrid Council before making a decision." As they ended the transmission, Peter turned to Diana. "We need to find a way to stabilize the situation quickly," he said, his voice low, "or we might not have a choice but to accept outside help." Diana nodded, her expression grim. "Let's check on Lyragen and Marcus. If we can get that stabilization system online soon, it might be our best chance at averting disaster." They made their way to the main engineering bay, where Lyragen and Marcus were coordinating the construction efforts. The two hybrid scientists looked exhausted, their features drawn with fatigue and stress. "We're making progress," Marcus reported, gesturing to a holographic display of the partially completed stabilization system. "But it's not fast enough. The energy buildup in the core is accelerating beyond our initial projections." Lyragen stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with a mix of perseverance and fear. "We have a proposal," she said, glancing at Marcus. "It's risky, but it might be our only chance to complete the system in time." Peter and Diana listened intently as Lyragen outlined their plan, an experimental procedure to enhance their hybrid abilities, allowing them to interface more efficiently with the progenitor technology and accelerate the construction process. "The potential long-term effects on your physiology," Diana began, her voice trailing off as she considered the implications. "We understand the risks," Marcus said firmly, "but we're running out of options. This could be the difference between saving the colony and losing everything we've built here." Peter took a deep breath, weighing the decision heavily. The fate of AX-789 hung in the balance, and time was running out. He looked at Diana, seeing the same mixture of concern and reluctant acceptance in her eyes. "All right, Peter said finally, "let's do it. But we'll need Dr. Rodriguez to oversee the procedure and monitor your conditions closely." As Lyragen and Marcus prepared for the enhancement procedure, Peter and Diana returned to the command center to coordinate the next phase of their response. The planet continued to tremble beneath their feet, a constant reminder of the ticking clock they faced. "Once the stabilization system is operational," Peter said, studying the latest seismic data, "we'll need to establish the final connection between the planetary core and the stellar collection array. It's going to be dangerous, the most unstable region of the planet." Diana met his gaze, understanding dawning in her eyes. "We'll have to go ourselves, won't we?" she asked, already knowing the answer. Peter nodded solemnly. "Our hybrid abilities give us the best chance of success. We've come too far to fail now." As they began to plan their perilous journey to the planet's core, alarms blared throughout the colony. The stabilization system had come online, triggering a cascade of unexpected phenomena across AX-789. The bioluminescent forest pulsed with intense energy, and reports flooded in of new hybrid life forms emerging at an alarming rate. Peter and Diana rushed to the observation deck, watching in awe as the planet seemed to come alive around them. The luminary hybrids, deeply connected to the planet's ecosystem, had entered a trance-like state, their bodies glowing with otherworldly energy. "It's working," Diana breathed, her eyes wide as she took in the spectacle. "But at what cost?" Peter squeezed her hand, his expression a mix of perseverance and uncertainty. "Whatever happens next, we face it together, for the future of X-789 and everything we've built here." As they turned to prepare for their mission to the planet's core, the colony behind them buzzed with nervous energy. The fate of their hybrid civilization hung in the balance, waiting to be decided by the actions they would take in the hours to come. In the hours to follow. With a shared nod of perseverance, Peter and Diana turned their attention to the task at hand. The journey to the planet's core began in a newly formed crystalline tunnel, its walls pulsating with an otherworldly glow. Peter and Diana's hybrid bodies shimmered with energy as they descended, their enhanced senses attuned to every vibration and shift in the planet's structure. "It's beautiful," Diana breathed, her hand trailing along the smooth, luminescent surface of the tunnel. I've never seen anything like it. Peter nodded, his eyes scanning the path ahead. The planet's transformation is accelerating. We need to hurry. As they ventured deeper, the air grew thick with energy. Bioluminescent fungi clung to the walls, their spores drifting lazily through the air. The couple's skin tingled with each breath, their hybrid physiology adapting to the changing environment. Back on the surface, Lyra, Jen, and Marcus worked feverishly in the engineering bay. Their enhanced abilities pushed their bodies to the limit as they fine-tuned the planetary stabilization system. Power output is fluctuating, Marcus called out, his fingers dancing across a holographic interface. We need to recalibrate the energy flow. Lyra Jen nodded, her antennae quivering with concentration. Adjusting now. Let's hope this holds until Peter and Diana complete their mission. Across the colony, the luminary hybrids remained in their trance-like state. Their bodies glowed with intense energy, forming a living network that spanned the planet's surface. Through this connection, they channeled and redistributed the planet's chaotic energies, buying precious time for the stabilization efforts. As Peter and Diana reached the final stretch of their descent, the tunnel opened into a vast, spherical chamber. At its center, a sight beyond their wildest imagination awaited them. The planet's core had transformed into a colossal, pulsating crystal entity. Its facets shimmered with colors beyond the visible spectrum, radiating an intelligence that was both ancient and newborn. Peter, Diana whispered, her voice filled with awe, I think it's alive. Before Peter could respond, a wave of telepathic energy washed over them. The crystal entity's consciousness touched their minds, its thoughts crystalline and vast. Welcome, children of two worlds. The entity's voice resonated in their minds. I am AX-789, awakened by your presence. Peter stepped forward, his hybrid senses reeling from the contact. We've come to help stabilize the planet. The seismic activity was part of my awakening, the entity interrupted. Your hybrid presence triggered my evolution. Now I offer you a choice. Join with me in symbiosis, and together we will create a new future for this world. Diana and Peter exchanged glances, the weight of the decision heavy on their shoulders. What would this symbiosis entail? Diana asked. The entity's response flowed through their minds, showing visions of a transformed AX-789. Hybrid colonists living in harmony with the planet, their evolution accelerated and guided by the planet's consciousness. In return, the diversity of the human Andromedan population would fuel the planet's own growth and understanding. Peter took a deep breath, his decision made. On behalf of our colony, we accept your offer. With those words, Peter and Diana stepped forward, using their hybrid abilities to forge a connection between the planet consciousness and the stabilization system. Energy surged through their bodies, the raw power of the planet's core flowing through the network they had created. On the surface, Lyra, Jen, and Marcus watched in amazement as the stabilization system came to life. Streams of energy pulsed through the colony, neutralizing the hostile fungal spores and stabilizing the colonists' enhanced abilities. As the wave of transformative energy swept across AX-789, the bioluminescent forests erupted in a dazzling display of light and color. New growth patterns emerged, forming intricate, circuit-like designs that served as a physical interface between the planet consciousness and its inhabitants. In the engineering bay, Lyra, Jen, and Marcus felt their bodies begin to fail, pushed beyond their limits by the enhancement procedure. Just as their vision began to fade, they felt the touch of the planet consciousness. Its energy flowed through them, healing and evolving their hybrid forms even further. Peter and Diana emerged from the crystalline tunnels to find a world transformed. The harsh lines of the habitation domes had softened, merging seamlessly with the living forest. Colonists wandered in wonder, their hybrid abilities now in perfect harmony with their surroundings. As the four original hybrids reunited, their bodies shimmering with newfound energy, they knew that this was just the beginning. The symbiosis with X-789 had opened doors to possibilities they had never imagined. Dr. Elena Rodriguez approached them, her eyes wide with excitement. You won't believe the breakthroughs we're making, she said, barely containing her enthusiasm. The planet's resources, they're allowing us to cure genetic disorders we thought were untreatable. Peter smiled, feeling the pulse of the planet consciousness thrumming through him. And this is just the start, he said, looking out over the transformed landscape. We have so much more to learn, to explore. As night fell on the new AX-789, the bioluminescent forest pulsed with a soft, comforting glow. The colonists gathered in the central plaza, their faces a mix of wonder and anticipation. Peter, Diana, Lyra Jen, and Marcus stood before them, ready to address the crowd and usher in this new era of symbiosis and discovery. The journey that had begun with a simple act of kindness, offering water to a thirsty alien girl, had led them to this moment. As Peter prepared to speak, he felt the weight of their responsibility, not just to the colony, but to the future of human-Andromedan relations and the vast network of progenitor worlds waiting to be explored. The air crackled with possibility as Peter took a deep breath, ready to address the assembled colonists and chart the course for their hybrid civilization's future.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.